being one of the finalists of the Toyota GAZOO Racing Cup is a honor because we are representing one of the most important brands in the world, which is Toyota, and also having the racing partnership with Gran Turismo is surely a big progress.
去年、一昨年とGR スープラ GT カップがあったんですけど、2年とも3位と1位でいい成績を収められているので、今年の、TGR GT カップ、少なくとも表彰台で、できれば優勝を目指して頑張っていこうと思います。
Para mí es muy importante participar porque fue un campeonato que marcó mucho para mí, porque quedé en el podio y nada, espero repetirlo este año.
There are 24 competitors in the Toyota GR Cup, and I think it's probably the best 24 drivers in the world, so we'll try to give our best and have a good competition.
I expect it to be pretty much equal. We are on the same level and it's going to be really exciting.
Hello and a very warm welcome to the 2021 FIA-certified Gran Turismo Championships World Finals weekend. We've got 3 fantastic days of racing ahead, with the Manufacturers Series tomorrow and the Nations Cup on Sunday. And today we're kicking off with the Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup. 24 drivers from around the world have won their chance to race today. All of them will be desperate to bring home this beautiful trophy, along with an original helmet, which is being provided by Kinto Car Subscriptions, who have become an official partner of the TGR GT Cup from this year. The good news for all our drivers is that the TGR collection will be providing a full set of gear from their new e-motorsports line, created for e-motorsports competitors. So, who will follow in the footsteps of last season's winner, Takuma Miyazono from Japan? Talking of Japan, we've got a live audience in Tokyo, including senior executives from Toyota, who'll be watching every twist and turn of today's racing. I hope you guys have a great evening. Now, you won't need to wait long to hear from our resident GT experts, Tom Brooks and Jimmy Broadbent. But before that, let me explain what lies ahead. So the format's pretty simple, really. We've got 2 semi-finals and the top 8 drivers in each will progress to the final. But the semis are crucial, as how well you qualify determines where you start on the grid for the final. First place in either semi gets you front row, second place means second row on the grid, and so on and so on. Drivers in the fastest semi-final will take all the odd numbers on the grid, so first, third, fifth, etc., etc. So hi, Tom and Jimmy. Hello. Talk us through. Were you waving? I'm right here. Talk us through some of the key runners who we're going to be looking out for in this particular race.
Yeah, I mean, let's go first for semi-final 1. I mean, there's some drivers in there that we know and love. There are some new names in there, though, as well. You can see Valerio Gallo, Lucas Bonelli, Igor Fraga, etc., etc., and then a few new names towards the bottom. I think let's start off with Valerio Gallo. He's been the man on form this year.
Definitely, definitely.
One to beat, OBS Series champions. I think he carries around that trophy with him.
I would not be surprised.
Walks around with it. And I mean, if he's not in the top 3 in semi-final, he's done something very wrong. Same as well for Igor Fraga. We know how quick he can be, but I think that's we've had a sort of on-off, on the boil, off the boil thing with Igor this year. Sometimes he's amazing, sometimes he's not.
Yeah, but also I feel like he's working up to the peak of the crescendo, because it was sort of like I feel like he's kind of, so hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Driver analyst Julia there.
Yeah, there's a crescendo of some kind. I saw it.
I like your work. Miroslav Kravchenko as well, German driver who, again, we've seen throughout 2021, a little bit last year, I think, as well. Driver to keep an eye on, certainly, I think.
Yeah, I think a good outsider bet. Maybe not quite the same raw pace as Gallo and maybe Fraga, but I think he still has that potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about semi-final B then?
Well, I mean, again, there's some new names in there. There's some names that we're familiar with as well. You can see Jose Serrano, Baptiste Beauvoir, Thomas Laboutelet, etc. New names down the bottom of the order as well. I think kick off with Jose Serrano first off. Again, a driver who's been kind of the nearest rival this year to Gallo.
Yeah, isn't that weird how we're sort of comparing people as the nearest rival to Gallo, as that's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, if there is a mistake at any point from Gallo, then Serrano's always been there. And I think he'll probably be quite glad that he's not in the same semi-final as Gallo, because that'd be a tough final otherwise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We want it to be these guys in the final. That's what we want to see, because it's been some amazing racing so far. And anyone else, while we're here, anyone else to look out for?
Thomas Laboutelet, I think, really. Again, earlier on this year, we saw him performing incredibly well with Volkswagen, but his legacy was rather marred by running out of fuel in the last race.
I shouldn't laugh, but that's the clip I think of him now. I just think of him being, oh no, I'm out of fuel. So hopefully now he'll give us a better clip.
Maybe he's got like the drive and dedication to be like, this can't be on my highlights reel. Like, I have to do something else, please. So yeah, maybe that'll put a fire in his belly. As you'd expect in the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup, our drivers will be racing in Toyota cars. For the semi-finals, this is the little beauty that will provide all the power. The Toyota GR Yaris First Edition RZ High Performance, which I have to say is a personal favourite of mine. Let's see how it gets on for qualifying in our first semi-final.
So then, let's have a look at the circuit we're going to be competing in for the semi-finals. This is the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, Austria, a track that is very well known, of course, in motorsport circles. 4.3 kilometres, Jimmy. We love it, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great overtaking zone. It's T1 and T3 at the top of the hill there, and a big climb up there from O and V up to AMS corner. Nice and easy and short for us to remember, of course, but that's going to be your best overtaking spot up there. Very big braking zone and a good point to send the car up the inside if you're feeling brave.
Lots of elevation, as you can see there as well, 65 metres in total from the top to the bottom of the track. Let's have a closer look at the race details. You can see the Toyota GR Yaris RZ High Performance, but interestingly, comfort soft tyres for the drivers.
Yeah, comfort soft tyres and, of course, wet conditions as well. So it's going to be very tricky out there for our guys to get power down in this car, even with the Yaris's four-wheel drive system. So looking forward to seeing how these guys get on and to add some more fun in there. It's a standing start with a full start check. So if you're a little bit too twitchy at the start, your race can be over before it starts.
Qualifying for the semi-final was a really interesting affair. Tomoaki Yamanaka set the early pace in the session. A brilliant lap time of a 1:57.6. You can see what it meant to the Japanese driver.
Yeah, keep an eye on these lap times because you're about to see one of the most amazing things I've personally seen, I think, in all my years commentating for GE Sport. First was Igor Fraga. He came across the start-finish line, narrowly slower than Tomoaki Yamanaka on a 1:57.64. Then Lucas Bonelli, also looking very quick. The Brazilian driver comes to the start-finish line. He's going to go even closer to Yamanaka. You can see splitting the two of them, less than a hundredth slower.
Amazing to see him as the top Brazilian driver. Sadly, the same could not be said for Miroslav Kravchenko. He was half a second or so down. It only put him 7th on the grid once he took the checkered flag. And then all eyes are on this man here, Giorgio Mangino. He had a brilliant middle sector of the lap and looked like he was going to carry that towards the timing line. Would it be enough to overhaul Tomoaki Yamanaka? Not quite. 11 thousandths put him 3rd on the grid.
Then check this out, this is insane. Here's Valerio Gallo, again, up in the middle sector. Look at his lap time compared to Yamanaka. Comes across the start-finish line, bam! 1/1000th of a second separates first to second, and down from first to fifth, it is less than 200ths. That is an amazingly close qualifying.
And there is the grid confirmation for you. So it's Yamanaka and Gallo on the front row, Bonelli, Mangino row 2, Fraga, Lopez row 3, Sasaki, Sirigaya row 4, Solis, Kravchenko row 5, Velasco and Candanolian complete the 6th row.
Well done to Tomoaki Yamanaka from Japan for grabbing pole position in our first semi-final. Let's waste no time in finding out if he can capitalise on it as we go trackside for semi-final A.
Here we are then on the grid, ready for semi-final A for the Toyota GR GT Cup at the Red Bull Ring. Wet conditions, as you can see here, and it's Tomoaki Yamanaka who lines up on pole position. Alongside him on the front row of the grid is Valerio Gallo, the Italian driver, just 1,000th of a second away in qualifying trim. Lucas Bonelli, the lead Brazilian on the grid, lines up P3. And the company alongside, he has got the Italian Giorgio Mangino. Next up, we have Igor Fraga, the 2018 Nations Cup champion. Alongside the Brazilian, he's got Koke Lopez for the company in P6. Then we have Sasaki lining up P7 on the grid. Let's see how Takuma is going to fare. He's got Nefeos Sirigaya, the Thai driver, alongside him in P8. The final row inside the top 10 comprised of Danny Solis in 9th position, and then Miroslav Kravchenko, the German driver. Just outside of the top 10 on the final row of the grid is Velasco, the Briton. Let's see how Quincy is going to fare. He has got Paul Candanolian alongside him in P12, completing the grid. Ready to go then for semi-final A for the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup here at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg. Wait for those 5 red lights to come on when they go out. 10 laps of racing will be underway here. Just to remind you, Comfort Soft tyres available for our drivers as well, meaning grip is not going to be at a premium at all. Lights out and away we go. Yamanaka gets away well, as does Valerio Gallo. Slotting into the slipstream as well is Lucas Benelli into 3rd position. On the brakes into the 1st corner. Look at Fraga having a bit of a look up the inside as Mangano also tries to make ground from 4th position, but it's as you were from the start. Yamanaka leads the way up the hill in towards turn 2 and turn 3, with Gallo, Benelli, Mangano and the like following as they come down in towards that braking zone. So this is the first opportunity they'll have to try and make a move, but they're a bit more spaced out than they would like coming in towards this corner. So on the brakes in towards turn 3 we go. Mangano has a look up the inside of Benelli. Can he make anything through there? No, not quite. It's as you were as they come out of turn 3 on the run down to T4.
Yeah, decent clean start from our lads there, given how slippery it is. Fraga, though, still having a look at Giorgio Mangano on the inside on the way down to T4. It's downhill braking here, so it's very easy to get the rear loose. Mangano now has got the move made. There he is, and Fraga not quite happy with this. Tries to lunge back there at the inside. Mangano covers it off. Understeers a little bit though on exit there, just trying to get the car into the corner, but manages to stay ahead for now. We're on board with the roof cam of Igor Fraga. The wipers just about working away on the front of the screen. Now we go into this middle section, and look how the cars move in the wet conditions. They are far from stuck to the ground. These Comfort Soft tyres are definitely not grippy, and it takes a special sort of drive to get the car under quickly and in one piece.
Well, absolutely. And one thing to consider as well, of course, is a standing start. They won't have had the advantage of being able to do that warming up lap. No heat in the tyres and the brakes, so they're getting that in on this first lap here.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I think it is. You have to keep in mind, of course, that these wet conditions is constantly cooling the tyre down. So, given this tyre is treaded, it will warm up a little bit as compared to maybe a slick tyre. But we'll do that next time. I'll put one slick to see how they do. Gallo, they're getting very close to the end, the back of Yamanaka as we come to the end of the first lap now, coming up the last corner. It's Yamanaka, Gallo, Benelli, Mangano, Fraga at the moment. The top 5 cars very close together. Then it's Lopez, Sasaki and Sirigaya down to 8th place. We're still on board now with Valerio Gallo. Not quite close enough for a look into T1. Good to get an onboard shot though and see the line through here. Pretty much the dry line. But you see an exit, the car drifts out to the exit and straighten up the steering wheel to try and make the car drift as quickly as possible and not scrub the tyres too much.
There's a horrible sausage curve on the outside there, which Igor Fraga got very familiar with, if you remember, a couple of years ago in the World Tour. Big winners on the first lap, Miroslav Kravchenko as well as Paul Candelonian. They made a position each respectively. Kravchenko up to 9th place, Candelonian up into P11 from starting 12th on the grid. Through turn 3 we go then, on to the long straight. You can see the markers on either side of the circuit as we come through them now. That's the penalty zone, so if any drivers do not obey the rules, then that's where they will be serving those penalties. So keep an eye out for that. You'll see that also indicated on the left-hand side of your screen where the tower graphic is with the red dot flashes next to their name. So a relatively sedate first couple of laps coming in towards these hairpin bends. I say that though, as there was a bit of contact in the mid-pack there, and that has sent Danny Solis right down the order. I think it was himself and Kravchenko who came to blows there.
You say contact, I think that was just a bowling ball there down into T4. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but I'm sure our stewards will be on that as soon as they can be. Meanwhile, looking at Sasaki in the middle of the field at the moment, not quite able to get past Kravchenko, who has gained another couple of pace now up to P7. That's free from his starting position. There is Danny Solis now on the back of the pack. Here's a replay of what happened then. Let's have a look. So we are having a look back at Danny Solis. Goes to the move. Oh, he's on the wet line. Just, yeah, nowhere near manages to get that stopped. I admire his optimism there, but unfortunately, Sirigaya there getting a bit of a slap on the way through as Solis tries to stop the car.
Yeah, apologies there to Kravchenko. It wasn't him who was involved in that incident on lap 2, so it was Solis into the side of Sasaki and also Sirigaya getting caught up in that. At the end of lap 2, it's Yamanaka that still leads the way, 0.2 of a second ahead of Valerio Gallo. We ride on board then with the Japanese driver down in towards turn number 1. So you're Valerio Gallo, you've got Yamanaka in front, you've got Lucas Benelli close behind. You don't want to be making any rash moves too soon here, Jimmy. What's going through your mind right now?
Just take it easy, you know, you've got the leading position, and if Gallo does go for a move, you're only 3 laps into the race, so it doesn't really matter too much at this point. There's Gallo, give him a little flash of the lights to Yamanaka and say, I'm here, no, let's not fight just yet. But I've seen Gallo do that in the past and go for a lunge, so you can't trust Valerio. He's definitely a wily old boy. Just a little update on Daniel Solis, by the way, slapped with a 2-second penalty there for that attempt, I think is the word to use, and overtake down to the bottom there. So matters worse for Daniel Solis.
Two Brazilians going head-to-head then here. This is Igor Fraga versus Lucas Benelli for 4th position. Very close indeed, with Fraga going for the inside line on his compatriot, down on the brakes in towards turn 4. Can Fraga make the move stick on Benelli? Not quite at the moment. Benelli holds on to P4. Mangano's a little bit wide into turn 4 there, runs it a bit wide on the exit. Benelli's got a tighter line on the inside and has got 3rd position for the time being, but they're going to flick it left. Can Benelli hold track position as they come in towards the left-hander? Mangano's got track position on the inside there, but Benelli's got the overspeed. Very close as they understeer their way through the left-hander. Benelli's out a little bit wide there. Mangano just about holds it through on the inside. Fraga's ready to come through on him as well. Benelli does manage to get himself up into 3rd place.
He wonders how little grip there is. There it is. These guys are just dancing around this middle sector. And no, there goes Velasco in the background. He's gone wide as well. I was going to say already that Kravchenko's lost a few places, and I'm not sure if he was the one responsible for Quincy's sort of journey to the gravel there, but we'll get an update as soon as we know. Back to Lucas Benelli heading this little second pack at the moment. I was going to say at the start of all that, back early in the lap, did he have a little bit of contact with Mangano? I'm not sure. I mean, again, our stewards, Hawkeye, don't know if that's happened or not, but we'll stay on board with Giorgio Mangano now. Of course, the second place of our Italians in this field at the moment. Benelli in front, going down to, well, up towards T1, I should say. It's uphill braking here, so you can brake a little bit later than you usually would, but even in these wet conditions, it's quite... Oh, Lucas there, hitting all sorts of sideways, misses the apex, and then what he did there was try to commit to the corner, try and avoid the slowdown. Now we've got 3 wide coming up towards T3.
Here you can see then Igor Fraga coming in towards to join them as well, because Mangano was a little bit slow through there. Benelli's on the inside then, so down this straight we go. Here comes Koke Lopez, ready to try and join the party. On the brakes into turn 3 we go. Fraga on the inside, don't think he's going to make anything through there. Side by side in front with Benelli versus Mangano once again through the hairpin. On the straight, down on the run to T4. A penalty for Kravchenko there. He's been awarded 2 seconds for contact. That might have been, as Jimmy said, with Velasco, but they're still running nose to tail as we come on that run down to T4.
I think Kravchenko something like 600 laps of practice for this race. It's not really shown, unfortunately, for Kravchenko. Here's Koke Lopez looking at the back of Igor Fraga. Again, I'm not sure if it's just a tiny bit of contact there. It's quite hard to judge this, of course. Bear in mind, you're in the wet conditions. The braking zones are a lot longer, and a little flash of the lights there from Koke Lopez to Igor Fraga. I think maybe a little bit of a hurry up. Let's see if we can get on with things, please. Coming through this middle section, you can see Fraga turning in a little bit too early and getting just that 4-wheel understeer that comes with these wet conditions. If you turn in just slightly at the wrong time, don't get the power down, the weight's in the wrong place in the car, and you can't get the car to rotate properly. That's what happened to Igor through there. It's 2x2 as we come into the last sector once more. Koke not quite close enough for a move. Igor with a great exit there, so we'll keep him happy for a little bit, and actually puts him into the back of Mangano in front. So it looks like the battle for 3rd place is now between 3 cars.
Velasco's picked up a penalty then on that lap as well. Can't quite see what that is for, but either way, not good at all for the British driver. He was quite far down the order at the start of this race, and that has sadly compounded what's been a difficult semi-final A for him so far. Just to remind you, only the top 8 drivers will be going through into the grand final for the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup 2021 here. So the top 8 positions at the moment are bookended by Siragaya, and let's see whether it is going to be the Thai driver who holds on to that 8th place before this race reaches its conclusion. Already at the halfway stage we are now of semi-final A. Riding on board here then with Igor Fraga, shifting up the 6-speed gearbox, really short gearing on this Toyota GR Yaris. I can testify to that because I have one at home. And I had to drop it at some point, JB. But it's a car designed for acceleration rather than top speed, and you can see that just how quickly they were shifting up the gearbox in towards 6th gear before the end of that straight.
I wonder if during the design meeting the guy said, "Oh, I wonder what it will be like in the wet conditions of the Red Bull ring." Well, now we get to find out. It's the beauty of GT Sport and sim racing. Meanwhile, we'll look back at this battle for 3rd place. There's Yamanaka and Gallo, the forefront of the picture. Now we have Benelli, Mangano, Fraga and Lopez coming down towards the hairpin. All from the similar sort of driving style there, so just rotating the car into the corner, using that 4-wheel drive to sort of pull you back out again. But when you do that, you have to make sure you're accounting for that. Give yourself a little bit more space and exit, because the car will naturally drift out to the curb on the outside. Double apex corner here into the left hand, very tricky to get right in these conditions, using all the runoff there and a little bit more for the guys in front. You can see it's almost like these guys don't stay in a straight line very long, constantly sliding, constantly rotating the car. It's the quickest way around in these conditions.
Beautiful to see it though, great car control from these drivers. Of course, four-wheel drive this Toyota GR Yaris, limited slip differentials on the front and rear as well. And they'll have the advantage, I believe, of torque vectoring as well, so they can adjust the torque between the front and the rear as to what sort of setup they would like. If they'd like a slightly more rear-biased power differential with this car. You can see here Yamanaka got that gap up to just over 0.4 of a second between himself and Valerio Gallo. These two running a relatively quiet race as it stands at the moment, and you wonder when Valerio Gallo is going to pounce, because surely he's not just going to sit behind Yamanaka for the entirety of this race.
I think he'll wait for you to read off the rest of the spec sheet from your car first, mate, and then you might have a move. But there's no reason at the moment. Obviously, of course, having a better run in this race is going to help you going into the finals. But for now, why not just stay there? I mean, the only place that matters is where you are when you're crossing the line on the last lap. So I always say that if you can set yourself up very nicely for that, then great. And if you can pull away and not have to worry about the guy behind you, even better. But in this situation where the slipstream is really, really strong around you, it's hard to break away from the guys in front. It's better to be patient and time your move. If you make the move too early, next lap maybe they come back at you, or they know what to expect next time the attack comes. Too late, and of course, you won't get that place.
Fastest man on track so far is Takuma Sasaki, down in 7th position. He's got the quickest lap overall on track so far out of all of these drivers, 12 of them which are on track at the moment. You can see a difference in lines, I should say, rather, into that turn 4 corner there. Some going a little bit wide, scrubbing off a bit more speed to try and get a better exit. Some taking a tighter line and carrying a little bit less speed into that corner. Interesting to see the difference in that. I suppose that's one thing that the wet conditions do allow, is that you can sort of experiment with the lines and find out and feel where the grip is.
Yeah, a little bit around here, of course. We usually say that in the wet conditions you want to stay off the curbs, but in some instances it's actually the complete opposite. Some curbs in the wet actually hold a lot of grip, especially in karting as well. Of course, these are, I mean, they're driving like glorified go-karts right now, given how sideways they are. But I think around here, maybe you can kind of just take the normal dry line, as long as you are making sure you're accounting for the fact that you aren't going to stop as quickly, you aren't going to turn as well. And when you do get on the throttle, you are probably going to drift out to the outside of the circuit. So there is a level of restraint that takes driving in these conditions too. And here's one man who we've had quite a lot of experience, like Igor Frago, mentioned a few times before. He is, well, I think he still is a real-life racing driver. A lot of experience in a real car and in conditions like these. So, but interestingly, the experience not paying off for him right now.
No, you can see the steely determination as we rode on board with him briefly there, coming through that right-hander, and he just looks very calm, very composed. Giorgio Mangano also looking pretty concentrated. Interesting to see the difference in driving styles between the two, and what I mean by that is how they're sitting at the wheel. Mangano seems to almost sit on the wheel, whereas Fraga seems to just be a little bit more relaxed in terms of his driving position.
You wouldn't think Fraga's having a good time at all. He looks like he's having the worst time of his life. I mean, that's just his driving face. I would love to do a series on driving faces, because there are some funny things I say that.
At least of all yours.
Yeah, mine. I don't like him having some sort of problem. But Gallo is just, again, you get a shift in the seat every now and then, but he just looks like he's chilled out. But you can see, if you look at his chest closely, breathing heavy, he's concentrating. He knows, he right now he's just thinking about what's going on. When you get to this sort of level of driving, Gallo and Yamanaka, you're sort of almost on a little bit of autopilot to an extent. The rest, the real like brain power is thinking, right, how do I get past this guy? How do I do it well? He cannot respond. And that's why we keep using the term a high-speed chess game, because it is like that. You're really thinking 4 or 5 corners in front all the time, just trying to think, where am I strong, where is he weak, where can I pounce?
I was talking about the difference in driving styles as well here, and you can see that really evidently between Yamanaka. He seems to be generating a lot more understeer through that car coming into the corners. You can see him just taking wider lines there, but squaring it off later on in the corner, whereas Valerio Gallo, despite that sideways moment, seems to be just a bit tighter on the corners, but it's a bit of a yin and a yang sort of thing. Mangano is faster, Gallo, I should say, is faster in other areas, whereas Yamanaka is quicker in different areas on the track. So though Yamanaka's sort of solution to driving with that understeer might look a bit slower, it seems to be paying off for him, because, well, Gallo's not getting past, let's put it that way.
For the corners who are on board there, Gallo had better access to every corner. So he's really good on corner exit here. Yamanaka, I think, fires a bit more speed into the corner. And then by the time they get way down the street, they're sort of they sort of meet halfway in the middle. So here's another look at it. You go into T1. Yamanaka then through the corner. You see as it turns in early, puts a lot of power into the car early. Gallo waits a bit. He lets the car settle and then gets in the power. He knows he's got the draft, so he can be a bit calmer through the corner there. Yamanaka, of course, has got his mirror full of one of the fastest drivers in GT Sport, so I'm sure he's feeling the pressure a little bit.
He's Is he going to go for a move down in towards T3? He certainly is. Gallo sends it up the inside on lap 8 then. Can he take the lead away from Yamanaka and get it stopped? Yes, he can. Brilliantly timed and executed from the Italian driver. He's back in front and into the lead.
This is what I meant by the chess game, because now if you're thinking ahead of that, Yamanaka will get him back at the same corner. Then in the last lap, Gallo will get him back and be in the lead going into the mid-sector, which is what he wants. So he's now thinking 2 laps in advance. These are some 4D chess moves, and my brain cannot comprehend them.
On the brakes in towards turn 4 then. Nice tight line there for those guys as they come through. Looks like Mangano was having to defend a bit from Igor Fraga coming through that corner as well. So into this infield section, this is where we saw Yamanaka generating more understeer as he comes in through that left-hander. Let's see the difference in lines between them, because as you said, Jimmy, Gallo seems to just be able to get a really strong exit out of these corners, but it's pretty even Stevens coming through there at the moment.
Yeah, Stevens not in this race. But yeah, I mean, as you say, that you're seeing it there, just on the exit, Gallo pulling away ever so slightly. But now he's in a different position. He's the one now punching the hole in the air. He's the one now having to look in the mirror. And because of their little overtaking, back at T3, they're now having to deal with the rest of the pack who have gained back up again. Any time you spend overtaking or fighting with someone around you, you lose time automatically. It's just the way things are. If you ever wanted to look at the front end of the Toyota Yaris, there's a pretty good one. As Yamanaka closes right up to the rear boot lid of Gallo, and Gallo immediately, very cleverly, goes to the centre of the circuit. And when you're following, sometimes you forget to follow the guy in front for maybe like a second or so. All that time you don't do that, you're not getting the draft. And Gallo now really starting to try and break the toe, try and give himself as much gap as possible. I'm now interested to see if he allows his pass to happen, and if the 4D chess moves that I mentioned before are going to be paying off for him.
Just to remind you, of course, top 8 drivers only going through into the grand final for this Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup. At the moment, it is still Nathaniel Sirigaya, the Thai driver, who is holding on to that position. So down into the heavy braking zone we go. Mangano's really late on the brakes. Contact into the back of Benelli, into the side of Yamanaka. That was messy from Mangano. Just a bit too late on the brakes there. And I wonder whether the stewards are going to be having a little look at that.
Yamanaka there, very much innocent in all of that. The move wasn't even between him and Mangano. It was Mangano and Benelli, but unfortunately Yamanaka caught in the end of it, and that's got to be a penalty surely, given the effect that's had on that part of the race. But we'll keep an eye on it. Yamanaka, though, is still in third place, as Tom said, top 8 to go through, so he hasn't got to worry too much, of course. So he's just, I think, he'll be a bit frustrated with that. He's done very well in this race, Yamanaka, and just to sort of get caught in the pack. That's what you try and avoid in these races. Getting involved in that mid-pack is usually the most detrimental thing you can do. Being out on your own in clean air, that is the nicest thing possible. But right now, Yamanaka still in third place. Mangano, see, a bit slow through there, actually. That's a really interesting point. It's a good car length or two opened up there just in that one corner. So we're actually now maybe starting to see the speed of Yamanaka compared to the rest of the field.
Fraga there in the background looks to be getting his elbows out on the back of Koke Lopez. Just seems to be having a sneaky looks up the inside through turn 5 and 6 there. Wasn't quite able to make anything stick, but we're coming on to the final lap. I wonder whether that might have been a dress rehearsal for the last time then. So Valerio Gallo, now his gap with all of the drama that went on behind him that was caused by his countryman Giorgio Mangano, has a 7/10 advantage coming on to this last lap. So all that Gallo needs to do really here is just kind of keep things calm, keep things on the straight and narrow, do what he's been doing, and he'll get this one sewn up.
We'll see, of course. We do have 2 very long drafting zones coming up around here, so it definitely isn't done yet. We're on board with Yamanaka, of course, who was leading this time round in the last lap, second place, on board now, coming through T1. In the draft of Benelli, a poor exit though, not a good exit from Yamanaka. And that relative, you can see in the top left-hand corner, going up slightly to half a second. He won't be able to pull that back. Interestingly though, will Benelli be able to close down Gallo before we get down to the corner? I don't think he will. A penalty there for Giorgio Mangano, undoubtedly for the contact this time last lap. So last time through then into T3, no one going for any moves. Interesting. I think waiting maybe on the run down to T4. Last time on the brakes, I think.
So here we go then. This is the penalty for Giorgio Mangano. It's going to drop him presumably right towards the back then of this top 7 of the group that are coming through your screen now. And in fact, Mangano's penalty is going to be applied to him at the end of the race, so that will be interesting to see how it all works out there for the Italian driver. On the brakes into turn 4, the drivers go. No moves being made. They're all running pretty nose to tail, and that's kind of the real last big opportunity. It's not the last opportunity, but you'll have to be pretty inventive and creative and have a lot of trust in your other driver if you're going to send it up at the inside of the final sector.
Well, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be our superstars. I'll tell you that. These guys, give them an inch, will take a mile and a half, because that's what these guys are like. But Gallo leads for the last time. Freedom in the sector from Benelli, from Yamanaka. Giorgio Mangano, I think, is going to serve a penalty coming out of here. I'm just seeing the penalty meter fill up, so to speak. So will he be able to stay in the top 8?
Well, let's see what happens then for Giorgio Mangano. Yep, the second penalty zone, as you say there, Jimmy. So he'll be able to serve that then now. And where will it release him to once the rest of the field then comes through? 1 second is the penalty. I think he's just going to drop behind Takuma Sasaki there. Or in fact, he's on the inside of Igor Fraga, or trying to get his elbows out. Certainly into the last couple of corners. So 6th place then for Giorgio Mangano. But it's his countryman, Valerio Gallo, who's coming through the final corner and aiming it for the timing line. A brilliantly executed drive from Valerio Gallo for the win in semi-final A for the 2021 Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup. Benelli comes home second, Yamanaka is third, Lopez, Fraga, Mangano, Sasaki and Sirigaya are the 8 drivers that make it through and progress into the grand final. Sadly, we say goodbye to Candanoli and Velasco, Krevchenko and Danny Solis after that 10-lap race. And a brilliant performance it is from Valerio Gallo, half a second the advantage. He finishes on top ahead of Benelli and Yamanaka after semi-final A.
A terrific performance there by Valerio Gallo from Italy, who's with me now. So, Valerio, it looked kind of comfortable. I know maybe that's not how it felt, but, you know, we're quite used to your consistent performance, so I felt quite comfortable. How did you feel?
I mean, I didn't felt comfortable at all, but yeah, at least, let's say, I managed to qualify, which was the most important thing. But yeah, unexpected result actually.
You waited for your moment to overtake Yamanaka. When that happens, are you really aware of it, or do you just kind of go with your gut? You're like now is the time, and you don't even have to think, you just make the move?
Yeah, let's say you have to have this kind of determination, especially in a condition of a world finals. I always try to save some tires and also, let's say, keep the pace for the first laps and then try to attack at the end. Otherwise, also the guys behind will have also recovered quicker.
So we don't know yet whether you're pole position for the grand final. Obviously, we have to run semi-final B, but what do you reckon your chances are? Who's your hottest competition? Is it Serrano?
It's kind of tough to say. Yeah, let's see, especially what's going to happen in the semi-final. I also know that Baptiste Benoit is back on the charge. And yeah, also Yamanaka as well, shown to be a really strong competitor today, so yeah.
Are you going to go for the hat-trick? Are you going to win everything this weekend? Are you starting off strong and you're just going to smash through all of them?
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly the answer we wanted. Brilliant, excellent. Thank you so much, Valerio. Congratulations.
Thank you, Julia.
So the first of our semi-finals did not disappoint. And if you're someone who likes to avoid disappointment, then I wanted to give you, well, a gentle reminder that the all-new GT7 is coming out on the 4th of March and is now available to pre-order on the PlayStation Store or via your favourite retailer. And after that public service announcement, let's get back to some more racing and head over to the qualifying for semi-final B.
Qualifying then for semi-final B went well for some drivers. Sadly, not for Baptiste Beauvoir. A mistake on his flying lap, too wide, resulted in a penalty, and it means he'll be starting right at the back of the grid.
Yeah, he would have known about that straight away as well. These guys know these circuits like the back of their hand, and as soon as he went wide, he would have known. Here's Helt coming through the last corner a little bit too much on the inside curve.
Oh my God, no! Such a bad last corner.
And he knows it as well. He knew it straight away. 0.5-second penalty. So easy to do under pressure. However, Kobayashi, though, a little bit of a standout in this. The 16-year-old driver doing it incredibly well, coming across the line and actually going into provisional pole with a 157.3, extremely fast.
That was 0.3 of a second quicker than the fastest lap we saw in qualifying for semi-final A. Takuma Miyazono was on a flyer. He came towards the timing line. Would it be enough, though, to depose Kobayashi? No, it would not. He would start at best from second place on the grid. Then it was Carlos Salazar's turn to take to the checkered flag. The Portuguese driver, great to see him back. He put a time in at this point quick enough for 4th.
Here was Le Boutelet, of course, and we know him best from his unfortunate antics in the Manufacturer Series a few rounds ago, but comes across the start-finish line. Actually, a very impressive time for him. That would have been good enough for pole position, I think, in the last round, but only good enough for 3rd in this one.
So here is Jose Serrano, then the Spaniard who everybody has been watching and praising so far in 2021. He put in a time quick enough for 3rd on the grid, the head of the second row. A brilliant lap time it was then for him, but it was an all-Japanese front row with Rikuto Kobayashi from Takuma Miyazono for semi-final B.
What a fantastic lap by Rikuto Kobayashi from Japan to grab pole position in our second semi-final. I'm sure that will have impressed our audience who are watching at Polyphony Digital, who produce Gran Turismo. Enjoy your day, everyone. Now it's time to find out which drivers can finish in the top 8 and qualify for the grand final.
Semi-final B for the Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup takes place here once again at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, and it is an all-Japanese front row headed by Rikuto Kobayashi. The 16-year-old lines up on pole position with the old hand, as it were, Takuma Miyazono alongside him on that front row of the grid. The next row is our first European competitor, Jose Serrano, the young Spaniard, lines up P3. He has got Thomas Leboutelet, the Frenchman, for company alongside him. Next up we have Benjamin Cho, the Chinese Taipei driver, qualifying in P5. Great for him to be so far up the grid, as well as Carlos Salazar, the Portuguese driver, lining up P6 alongside him. Then it's Andrew Lee, the Australian. Keen to see how he is going to fare from P7, with Kevin Pounder for company alongside. Just inside the top 10 we have the Chilean Angel Inestrosa. Angel qualifying a bit further down the order than he would like, with Abinakle alongside him. Then we have Baptiste Beauvoir, who we saw have a moment in qualifying a few minutes ago, and he has got Dean Helt for company alongside him, who again also had a tricky qualifying. Let's see then what is going to happen as we get ready to go racing for semi-final B here at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg for the Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup. Kobayashi on the right, Miyazono on the left, ready to go for lights out for semi-final B and 10 laps of the Austrian circuit here. Lights out and we go racing then. Good start from Miyazono and Kobayashi off the front row of the grid as they lead the way down towards the first corner, in towards and up the hill they go through to turn 1. It's Kobayashi from Miyazono, from Serrano as they come through. Leboutelet slots into 4th from Cho in 5th, so it's as you were off the starting grid, out of turn 1 and on the run down to turn 2 and then turn 3. That heavy braking zone could be the first opportunity for some moves to be made as we ride on board here with Kobayashi then. So into turn 2 we go, then into the heavy braking zone of turn 3. Miyazono pulls out from behind the slipstream, has a look up the inside of Kobayashi. Can he make the move stick? Leboutelet's up the inside of Serrano in the background there as well. Miyazono leans on the inside of Kobayashi, isn't quite able to make the move stick on the entry of the corner, and as such it is Kobayashi that retains the lead from Miyazono. Serrano is still ahead of Leboutelet for 3rd as well.
Yeah, nice respectful racing there between the two Japanese drivers. It's been very easy just to run one another off the circuit there, but decided not to. Serrano break big time on the brakes there. Wow, what a move by Serrano. Did Miyazono just forget to brake there or something? I'm not quite sure what happened, but Serrano there from a long way back past Miyazono. I don't think that was intentional either. Just a great move from a Spaniard. Wow, I didn't see that coming at all.
Fantastic from Jose Serrano. The young Spaniard is held in very high esteem after his conduct on track in 2021, and moves like that are exactly why that is. Meanwhile, Leboutelet is now coming under pressure from Ben Cho. Cho in turn is also coming under pressure from the Australian Andrew Lee as they come through. So the top 3 have kind of splintered away almost, only by 7/10 of a second or so, but that's enough for them to not be under any immediate pressure as we come towards the end then of the first lap. Let's have a look at a replay then, and we can see some side-by-side action in the background there. This is Kobayashi versus Miyazono for the race lead. Then you can see Jose Serrano getting himself ahead on the brakes. Like you said, Jimmy, just Miyazono a bit too cautious.
Part of me also thinks that maybe he just outbraked himself and panicked and went to the inside and made it look like it was pretty good. I'm sure it was intentional. I'm sure it was. But at the end of the first lap then, Kobayashi leads from Serrano from Miyazono. Decent start from Dean Helt from last up into 10th position. So looking to try and get into that top 8, of course, and qualify for the final. Top 8 go through, if you didn't know. Anyone below that, of course, has to go home or stay home, I guess. I think we're still doing this remotely.
It's this work from home strategy that we're still employing here with the FIA Gran Turismo Championship. Yeah, we do hope, of course, that we'll see you again in person very, very soon as the world begins to open up. Anyway, riding on board through turn 2, on the brakes into turn 3 with Takuma Miyazono here then. So he's been done over by Jose Serrano here, but he knows that Kobayashi's not going to be pulling away anytime soon. Do you think he's just going to sit behind and just play the safe game for now?
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of that. We saw it in the last race as well. Sometimes you've got to just pick your battles and maybe not get too aggressive too soon, because what you really want to ideally do is pick a group of cars with a similar pace that you just sort of try and put away from the field if you can. The worst thing you want to do is squabble with Miyazono, looking to try and repay Jose Serrano for the last lap. Not quite close enough to do so, but almost got alongside there, which would have been enough for Serrano to have to give him some sort of racing room. But that's a really nice overtaking spot there. It seems if you just go a little bit later on the brakes, you can carry a lot more speed into the corner. I think Miyazono is starting to realise that now into racing conditions, having of course been mucked himself the lap before. Leboutelet, by the way, up to P4 as well. Oh, sorry, he started P4. I thought he He came up with the field a bit there, but still up there in the background. I think just waiting is Thomas, the Frenchman. They're just waiting for something to happen, maybe try and gain a couple more places. But at the same time, he's in a qualifying position. Why bother?
It's amazing how close all these drivers are out on track as well. The biggest gap is between the top two. That's 6.8 tenths of a second. Everybody else is within sort of half a second or so, pretty much, up and down the field. It's so impressive how they're just able to run bumper to bumper almost on this track and almost anticipate what the other drivers are going to be doing and just run in such close combat for such prolonged periods of time.
Yeah, just having a quick look at Kobayashi's driver cam. He looks like he's under a lot of pressure there. I mean, he's a very young lad, Kobayashi, only 16 years old, leading a field of drivers who have been around in GT Sport for a very long time. I was doing a very good job of it. He's actually pulling away from Jose Serrano on a circuit where pulling away is almost impossible because of his draft. So a fantastic drive so far from Kobayashi, but still a long way to go in this race. Here's Carlos Salazar from Angel Estrada. He's put a penalty on.
Yeah, not quite sure what that's all about there. Can't see whether that's been awarded for track limits or whether it's for contact. Yeah, half a second, so track limits there for Angel Estrada, presumably then. Half a second it is, and he tries to make that up on the brakes as he comes quite close to the back of Carlos Salazar. He's about to serve that penalty then. You can see the bar filling up on your screen. You can see the yellow markers either side of the circuit. Half a second it will be for Angel Estrada. He'll lose time, possibly a position here to Kevin Pounder as Pounder pulls towards the Chileans outside, and it's now Pounder up into 8th place. In Estrada demoted down into 9th position.
See, Estrada looking to try and come back on the inside there, sort of being very careful on the brake. Initial big input, and actually sort of playing the brake a little bit into the braking zone. I think maybe he just over-braked a little bit and was trying to carry a bit more speed through the corner. But that 0.5-second penalty, they're annoying, those penalties, because of course these guys were very strict on track limits there. Sorry, in the background, I just noticed, I think that was in Estrada, and so Beauvoir and Helt in the background, a little bit of side-by-side contact. Beauvoir now on the outside. Will Beauvoir be able to go around the outside and keep it? No chance there. Helt slides back across in the centre there. The Beauvoir's got the better exit, but there's not really much he can do about it. There's a big GR Yaris-shaped lump in front of him that he can't quite get around. So here's Angel Estrada, the view back. It's a great view from back there, but Helt not able to see, seemingly able to progress any further than 10th at the moment.
I've got to say, Beauvoir, he's going to be absolutely ruining that mistake he made in qualifying. Such a simple error, just running a little bit wide through that midsection, especially in wet conditions, on comfort soft tyres, and he's battling outside the top 10, and he was one of our sort of hot favourites going into this as well.
Yeah, we have to remember that Baptiste Beauvoir is actually, I think, one of the quickest GT Sport drivers that are around right now, but he's just not performed so far this year. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe maybe the level's gone up. Maybe he's not had as much time to practice. Maybe he's just not as comfy as he used to be in GT Sport. It happens every now and then. You go through phases of being on form and being off form, but it's been very strange to watch Baptiste having an extra one added to his position.
It's disappointing for you because you've not been able to award him any baguettes.
No, not recently. No, you don't tend to get an 11th place baguette, but hey, maybe soon. But here we are then, down towards T3 again. That's why it's called T3. That King doesn't count.
It's not a corner, is it? Really?
Otherwise, the GT Sports director will tell me off if I say T2. Meanwhile, back to the front of the field, Kobayashi still leading from Swan. That gap is stable, around half a second or so. Not able to put away, but I've got to say, not really under pressure, is he?
I'm so impressed with his maturity. As you said, Jimmy, 16 years old, and he is just driving beyond his years, given his experience. And who knows, he may have been playing Gran Turismo for a long time. He may have only just picked it up very recently. Either way, he looks like he's been racing for years and years, and he's just not under any pressure from behind, not making any mistakes. It's, I imagine, quite easy when you're sat out in front in a race like this to make more errors because you've got no reference points around you.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming into a generation now where sim racing has been around for long enough that kids picked up when they were young, maybe 6, 7 years old, and have been doing it for 10 years at this point. Kobayashi, 10 years of experience when you're that young, you learn so much so quickly. And now we're getting this new level of driver. Kobayashi, I think, it's really interesting seeing sort of like this new generation come through, and he's definitely heading that, especially for Japan anyway. Looking back in the mirror, that's where he gains all his time for those last 2 corners, but there's no draft. When he has time to actually push the car, and not have to worry about the toe, he gains 2 tenths every time through there without fail. It really is impressive to watch. And I know you might be thinking, okay, it's 2 tenths, but this field is so close, so to pull that out around a circuit where slipstream is so strong, it really is something that should be appreciated.
Interestingly, fastest lap lost around was Thomas Laboutale in 4th position. He was the quickest of the drivers, a very impressive time for him, a low 1 minute 58 second. Doesn't do anything too much, it just drops him a couple of tenths further in front of Ben Cho, who sits in 5th position for now, but be keen to see whether Labuschagne can try and make a bit of progress here.
I want to bring up there, Tom, on that fact that Kobayashi's lap was 4 tenths slower and he had no draft. So, like, yeah.
That's how impressive that draft is. That's how important it is.
It's mad. It's mad to think that. Again, the 8 tenths now. He's actually pulling away from Serrano. Maybe it's just like, actually, no, I don't want to be near Serrano. I'm going to pull away now. Like, I wish I had that level of... when I was 16 years old, I think I would have had a panic attack sitting on this grid, let alone just driving in it. So,
well, I mean, as someone who's come from the world of sim racing over to the world of real-life racing, when you look at drivers like this competing on GT Sport at an international level, how impressive is it from your perspective to see drivers performing as well as this and sort of almost on the other side as well? What's the crossover skill like, you know, when you're sitting behind a sim ring compared to when you're at a real race?
I'm just praising you, don't mind there, but
sorry about that. Commentator's curse.
But I mean, the skills are very transferable. You know, I would love to see any of these guys in the grid given the opportunity in a real car, because I guarantee that will surprise them. I mean, for me, I put myself maybe in the top 20% if you're thinking about that way. These are the top 0.1%, the top 1%, and there's a big gap between me and them. But you know, I feel like I do okay in a real car. What would these guys do? They would absolutely trounce me, and I'm sure many other very experienced drivers, as we kind of proved with GT Academy a few years ago. You know, so it's really I always wish there was just a way we could do that, but. That's the great thing about sim racing. It's accessible. You can get into it, and you know, you can be sitting in your bedroom, or if you're Carlos Salazar in some sort of porch somewhere, and you can race against people around the world at this level, and it doesn't cost you anywhere near the amount it costs to go real life racing.
Yeah, you don't have to have millions in the bank to get yourself a seat in Formula 3 or Formula 2, or you know, potentially even hundreds of thousands to get yourself a seat in the national championship. You can buy yourself a wheel and pedals. You can even sit there and play on your controller. If you remember semi-final A, we had Danny Solis competing on the field. Infamously, of course, he used to use a controller for a lot of his career within GT Sport up until he came to the World Tours and then decided he was going to get the wheel and pedals.
Those gamepad players are someone else, man. I have no idea how their hands are still usable. You think sort of mad arthritis, but they all just seem to be fantastic. Anyway, back to the race, back to where we are now. Lap 6 coming down to T4. Kobayashi still leading from Serrano, from Miyazono, from Labuschagne. Joe, who's doing very well there, isn't he? Here's Andrew Lee up into 6th place. He started in 7th. He's got Carlos Salazar all over the back of him. Of course, these guys are currently going through to the final, as is Kevin Pounder, the last of the drivers who will go through to the final as it stands at the moment. Top 8 go through, 9, 10, 11, 12 progressing no further.
So then through that left-hander we ride on board here with Carlos Salazar, who's really quite late on the brakes. He was really close to the back of Andrew Lee. Let's see, this is Baptiste Beauvoir, Dylan Helt, and I think Helt just went way too late then on the brakes as we just cut back to riding on board here with Carlos Salazar out of turn number 3. So I think that was Helt just making a bit of a meal of his braking, and as such he's dropped right back to 12th position there, and that's a big shame there for Dylan. You can see him quite a way off the back of Sami Joe Abenakle, who sits in P11 at the moment. So Dylan Helt now, sadly, out of contention. As Jimmy said a few moments ago, the top 8 drivers go through at the moment. That is bookended by Kevin Pounder, who sits in P8, but he's only a couple of tenths of a second ahead of Angel Nostroza. And if there's anyone who's going to get their elbows out and get a bit aggressive in the closing stages of this race, I'd put a fiver on Angel Nostroza if I was a gambling man.
Yeah, I think I would too. I have to say, by the way, sorry, Dean, my co-commentator very much thinks you're called Dylan. So we'll just... he can't read.
I can't read.
I've been trying to teach him.
I do apologise. Yes. We'll get it right in the end.
It's all right. He's only been doing it for what, 10 years, this guy. So don't worry about it. On board with Salazar still, not being able to progress. It seems this race, on the face of it, very challenging. You're driving these GR Yaris's, which are awesome fun cars, on tyres that are actually probably worse than the cars have in real life. The comfort soft tyres, which are basically in this game a road tyre which degrades quickly, which I'm not sure anyone wants to use that really. In conditions that are very, very difficult, with traction control off, that's clear to see as the car's just sliding around everywhere, around a circuit where it's all about drafting and overtaking. It all sounds very good on paper, but everyone's being very patient, it seems.
They are, yeah. They're kind of biding their time, really. I mean, we're coming in towards the closing stage now of this race. It's not been a thriller so far. It's just been a great example, a great display of driving skill, really, at this point, to keep this car on the straight and narrow, as you said, on tyres that aren't designed for the car. This car comes with Michelin's Pilot Sport 4S's out of the factory. Running it on comfort soft tyres is, I guess, the equivalent to sticking a Formula 1 car on intermediate tyres and driving around in dry conditions. You just don't have the same level of grip underneath you as you would have, and the car isn't obviously able to perform at its sort of optimum level. But of course, we're driving here in light rain conditions as well, so there's not the grip underneath you. And they did a bit of a test with the wet tyres, and they said, oh no, it just didn't produce enough close racing, so we stuck the comfort softs on instead. And I love that.
You've got your more facts from your booklet. Yeah,
I'm working my way through them. By the end of the evening, Jimmy, by the end of the evening, you're going to know more about the GR Yaris than Toyota.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, still at the moment, the positions remain unchanged. Again, if you just joined us, Jose Serrano had a great move into Takuma Miyazono on lap 1. Lunging all the way down at T4, pretty much from a year and a half back. Got the move done though. Since then though, it's been fairly quiet. The biggest mover in this race, well, there isn't really one. It was Dino, but then unfortunately I think he had issues somewhere and ended up losing a little bit of time. So he's now last, and now having that clear also has a penalty, presumably for track limits, but they're so far off the back now that they aren't really going to have an effect on this race. The big name for me that's currently outside of the top 8 is Baptiste, or two of them, Baptiste Beauvoir and Angel Inestrosa. These are names that we expect to see in the top 8 going through to that Grand Final, but currently are in danger.
Yeah, that's a big shame there for Beauvoir, because of course he had that difficult qualifying, hasn't really made an impression on this race there so far. Inestrosa has dropped back a little bit off the back of Kevin Pounder. He was a couple of tenths of a second behind the American driver on the last lap. That gap has now increased to half a second, so it's only 3 tenths, but that 3 tenths can be a big difference. And as we come in towards the last couple of laps of this race, it could be curtains for Inestrosa and Beauvoir. And if you'd had a cheeky wager on that before the start of this race, I dare say that you'd be going home pretty empty-handed.
Yeah, don't take any betting tips from Tom.
It's also a good idea.
At this point, not that I'd encourage such a thing anyway. On board with Miyazono, not really much Miyazono can do. I mean, at this point at the moment, Takuma is still a 3-time champion from last year. Obviously got one more race to go after this, but do you reckon he's feeling that pressure to try and maintain that? I mean, it's a very impressive record to be a triple champion, but it does come with a lot of pressure.
Well, one thing to bear in mind is that these drivers are not going to be wanting to squabble too much amongst one another, because of course, depending on which of the semi-finals is quicker, dictates where they're going to line up on the grid, of course, for the Grand Final. And that could be really, really important. If you're the quicker of the 2 semi-finals, you'll line up on that cleaner side of the grid. And that could have a huge implication, I think, personally, on what happens for the race into the Grand Final.
To be honest, I don't think it'll be that big of a downside being on the dirty side of the grid in this. It's more positioning into the first corner. And again, you get the 4D chess moves coming in, people trying to put themselves in the right place at the right time. But they've got this race to concentrate on first. We have a lap and a half to go. Yeah, absolutely flown by this, despite the fact that there's not really been many position changes. They can't all be winners, the races. This one's been a quiet one, I think it's fair to say. Kobayashi still leading, though, still doing a great job keeping Serrano there. Interestingly, Baptiste Beauvoir has gone down to 10th place. Here we go now. He's now chasing Kevin Pounder and Angel Inestrosa. So this basically is for survival. Pounder currently in the last qualifying place. Angel Inestrosa looking to the inside. Will he go for a lunge here? Surely he must do. No, Kevin Pounder very late on the brakes here. Is he going to get that stop for the corner? He just about does. But Beauvoir around the outside. Is he going to make that stick?
That's amazing if he can do that. He was fastest last time around. Fastest lap for Beauvoir. He's been slowly chinking away at the armour of Angel Inestrosa. Can he find his way through up the inside into the left-hander? He certainly can with track position. Beauvoir through into 9th place. He's got just over a lap to get himself up into P8 and cling on to a place in the Grand Final here.
It's all or nothing now for Baptiste Beauvoir, only separated from qualifying by Kevin Pounder in front of the American. Angel Inestrosa doesn't seem to have much left in reply at the moment. A very rare performance there from the Chilean, just not quite showing that fire that we're used to seeing from him. So our leaders now coming around the second to last corner onto the last lap of the race. It's Kobayashi, Serrano second, Miyazono third. We're going to stay with Baptiste Beauvoir for a bit longer though, because of course this is one position. He needs just to get by Kevin Pounder and he is through to the final, but it's easier said than done.
Strong exit out of the final corner there for Beauvoir, a little bit sideways though on the curb. Is that going to cost him a bit of time? Pounder's got the advantage of a little bit of a toe in front of him from Carlos Salazar, but it's not going to be quite enough for Beauvoir to close up onto the back of him. Into the braking zone of turn 1 we go. Beauvoir closes. This is the run into turn 3 where the move could be made here for Beauvoir. Where's he going to think about it, Jimmy?
Well, I mean, this next corner, he's got the draft. He's right up behind the boot to Kevin Pound. He's going to have the overspeed. It has to be here, really. He has to get the move done. And then block coming out of T3. Here we go. Goes to the outside there of the American driver. There's contact on the way in. Beauvoir trying to go a long way around. Turns in on a little bit of contact there. Beauvoir is shoved wide there by Kevin Pounder. Angel Nestroza is going to try and get back by on the inside. Oh, a little bit of, I think a little bit of this, a little bit of that through there. I'm not quite sure that's anybody's fault, but still, Kevin Pounder keeps the place and still keeps 8th. That is the thing. He needs to stay there to qualify for the next round.
Possibly not for long, though, because Beauvoir's trying to go for the outside line into turn 4, late on the brakes, into the right-hander. Pounder's on the inside. Beauvoir's being shoved to the curb. It's like Albon versus Hamilton in the 2020 Austrian Grand Prix. Pounder then holds on. Here comes Nestroza. All sorts of sideways through the right-hander as they come through into the left. The last position then for the grand final is going right down to the wire here between Pounder, Beauvoir and Angel Nestroza. They're coming through into the final sector, and can Beauvoir do anything to depose the American driver through the final couple of corners? Here we look though at the battle at the front here with Jose Serrano right on the back of Kobayashi, then down in towards the final series of corners we go. Kobayashi's defensive. Serrano's going to try and get the switchback then on the inside into the final corner we go. Can Serrano make a move? No, he can't. It's going to be Rikuto Kobayashi who wins semi-final B here at the Red Bull Ring from Jose Serrano. Miyazono makes it a Japanese double podium with Laboutelet coming home 4th, Cho in 5th, Lee in 6th, Salazar 6th, and look at that, how close was it between Pounder and Beauvoir, but it's the American driver who progresses through to the grand final. Beauvoir, Nestroza, Abinakle and Helt sadly miss out on that. Final results then, there are your top 8 drivers who make it through. Wow, what a fantastic finish to semi-final B.
So that brilliant win for Rikuto Kobayashi representing Japan was even faster than semi-final A. So it puts him on pole position for our Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup Grand Final. And I can chat with him now. Rikuto, how was that? Are you happy?
はい。とりあえず予選をまず通過できたことが、とても嬉しく思います。あとは、そうですね、予選でポールポジションを取れてから、まず、ヒートの中で、大きなミスを全くせずに、10周走り切ることができたので、すごく安心しています。この調子で決勝も頑張りたいと思います。
I hear you're 16 years old, so you actually, this is why we haven't seen you before in sort of Manufacturers and Nations Cup. But I also heard that means that you're pretty hot stuff over in Japan in the under 18 category. Is that true?
はい、そうですね。未だそのオフラインの大会っていうのは一度も行ったことがなくて、そうですね。スケジュールが合わなかったりだとか、もちろん年齢もそうですし、結構あるんですけど、でも、実力は、持ってると思ってますし、あとは、安定感が自分の中でよくある方だと思っているので、そこを大きい大会でも、ぶらさずにいければいいなと思っています。
Well, I think you've proved that. Certainly, a lot of the usual Gran Turismo competitors are probably a little bit worried as the older you get. But, we're about to go into this grand final. How are you going to manage this? How are you going to stay on top and make sure you don't make any mistakes and lose a place?
そうですね。その自分の持ってる実力以上のことっていうのは、やっぱり無理してやろうとしてもできないことなので、自分の持ってる実力の範囲内で、本当に無理はしないようにだけして、確実に走り切れば、その自分の持ってる実力の分だけ結果が見えてくると思うので、そこを目指して頑張ります。
Oh, well, fantastic. I wish you every bit of luck going into the grand final. Okay, let's get Tom and Jimmy's reflections on those 2 awesome semi-finals.
Yeah, cheers, Jules. Thanks very much indeed. 2 brilliant semi-finals that we just had. I mean, first of all, let's kick off with semi-final B, the most recent one we've had. Rikuto Kobayashi, what do we start with him? I said it in commentary a few times, maturity beyond his years.
It is an awesome drive. He obviously got pole position, which was a surprise to us, I'll be honest. And then just drove away from the front. You bear in mind the amount of talent behind him. He knows all these guys, of course, he knows all about the fast guys in GT Sport. They're all just behind him. They couldn't do anything about it. It was just an absolute sensational drive from very young man.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see there a little bit of oversteer coming out of turn 3, but when the checkered flag came out, there was nobody else even really sort of near to putting him under any immediate pressure. To the line, he took the victory in commanding style, and I thought, oh, we'll see a bit of emotion from him. Not too much, just a little wry smile at the end there.
Yeah, we pay him by the minute. That's all we can afford, unfortunately. But again, another awesome drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's have a look back to semi-final A. We saw some brilliant racing between Valerio Gallo, Tomoaki Yamanaka as well. You can see here Valerio Gallo going for the move on Tomoaki down the inside. Talk us through this, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think this was something that was just thought about a few laps in advance. This is lap 8, 2 laps to go in the race. And Gallo thought, OK, well, now is the time for me to strike. And Yamanaka didn't really have any response. He didn't obviously need to take the move, the position to get back through and qualify for the race. But I think Gallo really just stamping that authority down and see even gapping a little bit towards the end on Benelli. So I think really that's just a statement of intent from Gallo. And as usual, we get the typical Valerio Gallo celebration. He could ask if we could give him a call. So if you could get on that, Tom.
Is that because he wants a GR Yaris?
Yeah, I think he does. Yaris time, please, he says.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, the grids for the grand final, they're decided based on the results of the semi-finals, and it's basically whichever of the semis was fastest lines up in the top position. So on this occasion, B was the quickest, so Kobayashi starts from pole position with Valerio Gallo alongside him on the front row of the grid. Then it'll be Serrano and Benelli, but a few big hitters further down the order there.
Thanks, guys. So this really is crunch time. The grand final will decide who wins the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup. And the car that everything will be decided in is this. Yes, the Toyota GR86. Look at it. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, let's fill ourselves in on the track that our drivers will be racing for the grand final.
So the grand final for the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup then is held at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Le Mans to you and me in the Toyota GR86, a brand new car to GT Sport on sports medium tyres. One pit stop required during the race as well.
Yeah, and what an intro for the GR86 here at one of the world's most famous circuits. Very long straights here, which means it's going to be a little bit of a slipstream fest, which means that until we get to the end of lap 6, we have no idea who's going to come across that line in first place.
I mean, guys, how important is the track going to be in deciding the grand final of today's race?
Well, I think very, to be honest with you. We love Le Mans, don't we? I mean, you can't not love Le Mans if you like motorsport. It's a brilliant circuit, long straight, tight corners. I know it's the same with every track that I seem to talk about and every description that I ever give, but you can't not like Le Mans, can you?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Brooks describes racetracks. Amazing. Good job, mate.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I mean, dare I say this circuit isn't really what I'd imagine for these cars going around. As you say, it's quite a long track, about a 5-minute lap time in these cars. And because it's so long, because the straight is such a massive flat-out section, these cars are getting up to their top speed. It's all going to be about slipstreaming and positioning of your car at different points during the race. You might well be leading going on to the last lap, but if your positioning's wrong, you could come out, 4th, 5th if you get just freight train, which is very easy to happen around here.
I mean, there's 2 points that I think are going to be crucial on the lap. You've got the Mulsanne corner at the end of the Mulsanne straight, and you've got Indianapolis at the end of a straight as well. What do you reckon?
Mulsanne corner, yeah. Indianapolis, not so much. And the reason why I say that is because in other cars, I say, yeah, OK, it's a long run, good chance to overtake if you can get by. But in these cars, there's not really any downforce. So if you try to go for a hero move around the outside, you're probably going to end up off in the gravel, which might make our highlights, but I think maybe Arnage, the corner after that, would be better suited for an overtaking this car.
Well, you say that, but I want to reference last year's Nations Cup final because we saw Takuma Miyazono versus Valerio Gallo. Some brilliant racing throughout the race. This is on the final lap. This is Gallo pulling towards the outside of Takuma Miyazono, coming in towards that section at Indianapolis. He gets the move done before that corner, but it's just to show that you can make it.
Straight on. That wasn't Indianapolis, though, technically. That was just before Indianapolis, so I think you're wrong, mate.
Oh, dear. A brilliant display of driving nonetheless, though, wasn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what these guys are going to be able to do.
Well, with just moments left to go before the big race, I'm delighted to be joined by the producer of the Gran Turismo series, Kazunori Yamauchi, and also by Toyota Motor Corporation's Koya Sugiura from the GR Brand Management Division. Hi, Yamauchi-san.
Hi.
Hi. What is so special about the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup?
e モータースポーツが始まって、 このシリーズというのは、世界で最初に行われた、ワンメイクレースなんですよね。ワンメイクレースってリアルなレースフィールドでは、たくさんのマニュファクチャラーが、行っていますけれども、それを e モータースポーツの世界で初めてやったのが、このトヨタ自動車で、その歴史がまだ続いている。これは素晴らしいことだと思います。
It certainly is. And Sugiura-san, what do you think of the racing that you've seen today?
はい、実は私昨年も見させていただいたんですけれども、昨年はスープラのワンメイクレースを見させていただいて、今年は初めてGR ヤリスで、セミファイナルを今見させていただいて、我々が普段お客様にお乗りいただいている車がこのグランツーリスモの中で今度また熾烈な戦いというかですね、すごく熱いレースを見せていただいて、大変興奮しました。楽しかったです。
I mean, we are all fully obsessed with the Toyota GR Yaris, certainly in this studio, and that just goes for the presenters. We love it. Thank you so much, Sugiura-san and Yamauchi-san. Right, it's time for the grand final of the 2021 Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup. Good luck, everyone.
Here we are then, ready to go for the 2021 Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup Grand Final, and here is how the grid lines up. It's the young, fast-charging Rikuto Kobayashi who lines up on pole position. The 16-year-old has got Valerio Gallo, the Italian, alongside him on the front row of the grid. Next up, we have Jose Serrano, the Spaniard. Alongside Jose, it is Lucas Pinelli, the Brazilian driver, who put in a fantastic performance to finish P2 in his semi-final. Takuma Miyazono, last year's champion, lines up P5 on the grid. Can he retain his crown? Be tricky to do from 5th on the grid. He's got Tomoaki Yamanaka to company alongside him. Next up, it's Thomas Laboutelet, the hometown driver on home soil here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Koke Lopez lines up P8 alongside him. The final row completing the top 10 is comprised of Benjamin Cho, the Chinese Taipei driver, with Igor Fraga, the 2018 Nations Cup champ, alongside him. Just outside of the top 10, it's Andrew Lee, the Australian. Alongside Andrew, it is Giorgio Mangino, the second of our Italians on the grid. Next up, we have Carlos Salazar, the Portuguese driver, lining up P13. Alongside him, it's Takuma Sasaki in P14. The final row of the grid is comprised of the American driver, Kevin Pounder, and Nefeos Sirigaya, the Thai driver, completing 16 drivers on the grid. Ready to race then for the final time, the Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup 2021 Grand Final here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Kobayashi on the right, Gallo on the left, ready to go racing, revs are rising, drop the clutch, let's go. Green light and go, good start then from Kobayashi, not bad at all from Valerio Gallo, who immediately tries to pull into the slipstream of the Japanese driver. Serrano pulling into the slipstream as well, as Miyazono then tries to pull out and make some moves as they come through the right-handed kink and then in towards the braking zone of the Dunlop chicane. But a great start from Kobayashi, that assures him the race lead at least into the chicane. Here's Gallo with Serrano and Miyazono on the inside there. Miyazono's going for the inside line into the next corner, lots of argy-bargy further back as they come out of the chicane. Looks like Salazar was out a little bit wide there from the back of the grid, but Kobayashi holds on the lead as they come on the run down through.
Meanwhile, in the background, Serrano, Miyazono and Bonelli all squabbling over the same piece of tarmac here on that one. Everyone very aggressive at the start here. I think they're all aware they need to try and get onto the back of Gallo and Kobayashi as quick as possible. But of course, these guys being so close together means that down the straight here to come through Church Rouge, they're all going to be in this slipstream train. We're looking back now from Jose Serrano. Behind us is Lucas Bonelli. Of course, a Brazilian driver, very, very well in his semi-final, but now looking to go a little bit better here in the grand final. Now look in the top hand, left hand of your screen there. That is the relative. Serrano currently 1 second behind Gallo. That's a significant gap already, because outside 1.2 seconds, the draft seems to fall away a bit. So staying in the draft here is going to be super important.
Yeah, absolutely right. So here we are then looking at Jose Serrano sitting in third position. Look at Gallo closing up onto the back of Kobayashi, then in towards that chicane, pulling out of that corner they go and onto the second part of the Mulsanne Straight. So Kobayashi then still sits in the race lead as we ride on board here then with Valerio Gallo, and you can see the advantage that the slipstream will make here for the Italian driver, having that hole punched in the air. It will give him a bit more overspeed into fifth gear then, and then up into sixth gear just before they're about to hit the brakes into the chicane. And he's closing there, but he's not quite close enough to mount a challenge at this point.
No, you can see also coming out of the last corner, he had his hazards on. I think there's a little sort of bit of communication with Kobayashi saying, come on, let's not fight yet. He actually got off the throttle quite early there, coming into the second chicane, still though pulling up to the back of the Japanese driver. And again, to feel this pressure from the best driver, or one of the best drivers, I should say, sorry, in GT Sport at the moment, must be insane for Kobayashi. But handling it well, and we're still going down now to the heaviest braking point on this circuit, the Mulsanne corner. You go from about 230 k's in this car to about 90 at the apex. Here's a replay of the start, by the way, because it'll happen very, very quickly. Igor Fraga, from what we saw before, you see that 3 wide there in the centre of the circuit, almost 4 wide coming into his first part of the course. So Igor there really having to try and fight his way through in the first part of the lap.
The big winner, though, was Andrew Lee. Look at him there, up the inside, and just kept himself out of trouble whilst they were all squabbling behind. There was Salazar going a bit wide out of that Dunlop chicane, but Andrew Lee managed to make 2 positions on the start there. The winningest driver, as it were, off of that starting position as he was outside of the top 10, now sits inside P8. Here's Igor Fraga trying to make his way back through into the top 10 as they come down the straight in towards Indianapolis then. He's sitting currently right behind Koke Lopez. Is he going to be able to pull himself towards the inside and get up through into the top 10? Not on this occasion as it stands, but Igor Fraga, I mean, down outside the top 10, this is not where the Brazilian will be happy with at the moment.
Yeah, and this second group's got to be careful because they've already got a second to 7th place, Thomas Laboutelet in front, so they need to make sure they're staying with these guys. They've got to play the long game. It's a 6-lap race, so there's no point squabbling for a place on the first lap. It means absolutely nothing until you cross the line on lap 6 of 6. So the drivers come through Arnage, the slowest corner on the circuit, only 70 k's at the apex through there, and now up towards the Porsche curves, which is what we usually associate Le Mans with, is really fast, very quick, high downforce prototypes. And the GR86, whilst it's a quick road car, it's not quite a prototype. So I'm interested to see how these guys take the Porsche curves.
Yeah, it's rather the opposite of that in terms of the downforce, that's for sure. These cars do not have a lot of downforce, and only sports medium tyres available to the drivers as well. That's something to mention. Should also mention that pit stops are mandatory in this race. The drivers must make at least 1 pit stop, but there's nothing to say that they have to change tyres in this race. We're expecting them to go 3 laps, then change over to another set of tyres. So they do 3 laps on one set of sports medium tyres, I should say, rather, and then they change over to another set of sports medium tyres, so sort of equidistant on both sets during this race. Now, riding on board here with Rikuto Kobayashi, I was saying just how difficult it is to overemphasise how impressive this young 16-year-old Japanese driver has been in what is his first appearance on the international stage. Through into this final series of chicanes we go. See they're coming out of it with a half-second lead as Koke Lopez has come into the pit lane then at the end of the first lap. Now, I was just saying about drivers coming in after 3 laps, and it's completely defied what I was talking about, so maybe I need to be quiet.
Tom, strategy specialist, I think is what it is. But
yeah.
Honestly, I'm not really sure what this is about. We've seen in previous races, Koke has actually been, I think, shoveled into the pit lane. I wonder if this is a repeat of that, but if not, my guess is that maybe he doesn't want to be involved in all this squabbling, because you can see the gap now between 7th and 8th. So that's actually up to 1.6 seconds. So that is now a separate group. Maybe he's thinking, you know what, if I'm in this group, I'm going to get caught up in this and I'm going to end up falling off the back. So if I'm on my own, I will run quicker. In my head, it's hard to understand because Le Mans is all about long straights and slipstreaming and drafting. So, we'll see if it pays off for him.
Well, that's exactly the point I was going to make. I mean, there's one thing there. He didn't change tyres. He stayed on the same set of medium tyres during that pit stop. And 2, he's out of the slipstream. So surely that gap is just going to increase.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it does tell me that this sport tyre is going to go the entire way, which I thought would happen anyway. These changing tyres will be required, but yeah, we'll see how it works. We'll keep an eye on Koke Lopez, see what his time's like. Meanwhile, on board with Igor Fraga, we have Cho in front and Lee in front of us as we go into the first chicane. Igor getting off the throttle a bit there, just trying, I think, to find a way around. This is where you're slowing yourselves up, really, just getting off throttle, trying to find ways around the guy in front. Oh, very late break from Cho and from Lee there. I don't think both of them, no, they've both missed the chicane. Fraga has to get off the throttle to try and avoid Lee there. Cho is slow as well on the exit. Here comes Giorgio Mangano. He's not waiting around for anybody. Through the middle of both of them, they're 4 wide temporarily as they come now down to the second Mulsanne chicane. Mangano up to 8th, Pounder up to 9th, and Fraga, well, he stayed in 10th, but he's simultaneously lost and gained pace at the same time.
Well, there you go. Igor Fraga disappointing with that in one sense, but he's now got the advantage of the slipstream. Kevin Pounder's ready to try and take advantage as he pulls towards the outside then of Giorgio Mangano. They're going to come in towards the left-hander. The next chicane on this Mulsanne straight. Igor Fraga looking towards the inside there. Can he make a move stick? Yes, he can. 2 into 1 does go for Igor Fraga. That's 2 places gained in the space of 1 corner. Bit of contact there with Pounder and Mangano in the second half of that chicane. Costs Mangano just a touch of drive, but manages to gather it up before the exit of the corner. Now Pounder's having to look at his mirrors because Ben Cho is ready to try and join in on the action as well as Takuma Sasaki then as they come down this straight. So we cross back to the battle for the race lead as it all kicks off just outside the top 10 here.
Yeah, I mean, it's all well and good for these guys, as you say, outside the top 10, but 8th downwards have now lost the front pack. They are not going to get that time back. It's a straight line circuit round here. These guys are all so close on pace that gaining back 4 seconds in the corners is almost impossible. I mean, you might do it over the course of one race, but anyway, here's a replay of what just caused all that. So Cho just, I think, forgot he had a middle pedal. Almost, I think he might have tagged Lee, or Lee had to get out the brake pedal to try and avoid being hit by Cho. And Fraga had to slow down for both of them coming back onto the circuit, and now has got back ahead of Mangano and is trying to chase down the Bouteille, but that gap is 4.7 seconds now.
So then, let's see how this is going to play out for these guys. I mean, as you say, it's going to be the battle for 8th position here, as we see Igor Fraga then having to defend from Giorgio Mangano. Mangano's got the overspeed, he's got the outside line into Indianapolis, keeps his foot planted in it, has the inside line. Fraga holds it around the outside, though, into the next part of that corner. Into Arnage they go. Fraga manages to retain 8th place from Giorgio Mangano, so good driving there from Fraga. I mean, that was brave to keep it so committed through there. I mean, he could have run wide and could have gone straight to the side of Mangano, and then they could have both gone into the barrier, but they're great. There was just great car control and great commitment from Fraga.
Yeah, I know, but I just can't help but think they're all being a bit silly right now. They're thinking of the overall result. I mean, obviously you always are convinced as a driver you are the fastest in the train. You need to be at the front so the train can catch the guys in front. But if you're then overtaking the guy in front of you and then he's overtaking you and vice versa, lap after lap after lap, you just give away time. That gap was 4.7 seconds coming into Indianapolis. It's now gone up by half a second to 5.2 seconds. So it's a tricky one if you're part of this group, because all you want to do really is try and get on with it and go. But you know what, actually, Coque Lopez is gaining time on Surigaya on the back of his pack. He's gained a second on the bit since he pitted. Maybe he's made the right choice there to come in early.
Well, I mean, that would completely defy what I was talking about, and that's completely fair, because normally I don't know what I'm talking about. As you said, Jimmy, that's a gap now down to under 8 seconds when it was over 9.5 after he came into the pit lane. Somebody else coming into the pit lane there is Takuma Miyazono, as well as Igor Fraga. Bouteille is in, Yamanaka is in, Fraga is in, as well as Mangano. So a lot of the drivers sort of in the lower half of the top 10 coming into the pit box now then.
This might be an effort to try and close the gap a little bit. Fraga is, of course, leading that train. Fuel isn't really going to be a problem around here. It's flat out everywhere. I mean, these little engines aren't the most thirsty engines in the world. Enough to have a good time with, but not to break your bank balance. So I don't foresee them draining the tank, so to speak. Here is Miyazono. He's out of the second pack now, or first of the pit stoppers, I should say, sorry, at the moment. So we're sort of split into another group at the moment. Yamanaka's there. There is the Bouteille as well, as they pitted. And there's Coque Lopez. He's on the back of these guys now.
And he's already made his pit stop, so he's already got a bit of heat into his tyres. He's 2.1 seconds now behind Bouteille in 8th position, so I'm keen to see how quickly he's going to be able to close down the deficit. If he can pull out the few corners of his life while Bouteille is getting heat into his tyres and get that gap down to 1.2 seconds, say, for example, that'd be very convenient for the slipstream, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's got to it. You see he's pushing really hard and actually pushed a little bit too hard and understeered through the Forest S's. Easy to do there as we come through territories again. So here are the first of the pit stoppers: Miyazono, Yamanaka, Bouteille and Coque Lopez, who, to be honest, a bit of a blinder considering that he was behind that sort of Fraga group. Here is now a change for the lead. Valerio Gallo up the inside of Kobayashi, takes the lead away there from the Japanese driver, and he decided, you know what, I want to lead for a bit, I think. Why not? And yeah, now, of course, that lead battle is a train of 4.
Fastest man on track, by the way, last time around, Lucas Benelli, P4. Nice to see Lucas putting in the performances that we are used to seeing from him. Sits in 4th position, right at the back of this little gaggle of drivers at the moment. Now riding on board here with Rikuto Kobayashi, then onto the back of Valerio Gallo he goes. Is he going to pull out of the slipstream of the Italian driver? You bet he is. Is he going to try and go back into the race lead? Well, certainly so, it looks like, as he comes down this back straight, then goes for the inside line. Gallo doesn't hold up too much of a charge. I think he might have even lifted off there into the braking zone, and it's Kobayashi back now in front of the Italian driver. Hazards on there for Kobayashi as well, so as we saw earlier on, just a little bit of communication between those two drivers, just saying, I'm going to go back in front now, and we're going to just keep it on the straight and narrow. These four, they don't want to get squabbling too much, because they'll start dropping back towards the likes of Sasaki and closing that gap down, which when it comes to them making their pit stops could prove to be a little bit more interesting. Here comes Gallo then on the retaliation once more, pulls towards the inside. Serrano's going to try and come through then as well. Here comes Gallo through on the inside of Kobayashi into the braking zone of the Mulsanne corner. We're about to go. Gallo's got the track position, he's got the overspeed, he's got the braking zone, and now he's got the race lead on Rikuto Kobayashi. So anything you can do, I can do better. Gallo back out in front.
Well, this is at least good for that second pack. These guys having a little bit of a fight now. But the thing is, Gallo had to make that move if he wanted to stay in the top two, because Serrano was starting to pull through in the tow. So you are somewhat, your moves are somewhat dictated by the cars behind you at this point. So it shows that Gallo is very aware of his surroundings. He's very aware of what he needs to do to stay at the front of that pack. And now the top four make their way down to Indianapolis. In the background for a second there, you saw Sasaki. He's on his own now, just driving down on his own. Not really gaining either at this point. So maybe, the Kobayashi there getting sideways in the first part of Indy. Again, these cars have no downforce, so when you're sending her in at 120 mile an hour on the sports tyre, the tyre does give up when you're trying to put that much load through it, and you end up having a little bit of a slide. But you're well held by Kobayashi. We're still on board now with Serrano as we come up to the Porsche curves one more time. Lap 3 of 6. It's a long circuit for these cars around here, so they really are having to maximise every corner, every braking zone to get the most out of it.
Yeah, just had a look there at Kobayashi just to see whether there was any change in the otherwise dormant facial expression as he went around that corner. Not at all. Wasn't bothered in the slightest, so continues on as he had done. There is Miyazono just coming through your shot, as you can see him sitting there in P6 at the moment, leading the gaggle of cars from Yamanaka, Labutale, and then Koke Lopez, who's got that gap down to 1.1 seconds. He's coming back into slipstream range here as Gallo is coming under pressure from the race lead from Kobayashi through the Porsche curves. Here comes Serrano then as well. Don't think any moves are going to be made coming into these corners, but is anybody going to dive for the pit lane at the end of lap 3? This is where we should see the top 5 ready to come into the box. Are they going to do so, or are we going to see somebody trying to go a lap longer and get the overcut? It's a long lap here to try and do that.
Well, let's see if Miyazono and Yamanaka have done enough, because the idea, I think, them coming in early is just not scoreable. And interestingly, Gallo, Kobayashi, they're going for another lap as well. This top four are all going for another lap. So I thought we would see a pit stop there, because as you said, Tom, makes sense, right? Split it down the middle.
Halfway stage, yeah.
They're going to keep going, and if they aren't changing tyres, then why the hell would you? It's just about basically now finding the fastest bit of racetrack and the fastest pack to race with. And you'd be forgiven to thinking that it definitely is going to be this front four, but that may not be the case. Here's Miyazono, and there is Yamanaka. Let's have a look at our lap times. Last lap by Miyazono was a 150 compared to, 54? Is that 4 seconds quicker?
Well, it was an outlap though for Miyazono.
Yeah, sorry, that includes the pit stop, doesn't it? Sorry, there's a little bit of our timing isn't quite like the pit stop.
But in terms of the second time, I would say that gap has definitely come down by about half a second or so, because it was over 8 seconds before when they made the pit stop there. So under 7.5 seconds now. So Miyazono, Yamanaka, Labutale et al. Are all closing up onto the back of Sasaki as he comes in towards the end of his tyre life.
Look who's got onto the back as well. Koke Lopez has managed to latch on, so he has got that gap down. So Koke, this is an interesting strategy from Koke. If this group of four, and this may be hard to imagine if you've just tuned in, given that, of course, they're in different parts of the racetrack, but these 4 cars have pitted. The 5 in front of them, well, we'll say the top 4, because Sasaki's not really in, I don't think, but the top 4 haven't pitted, so they owe a pit stop. But these guys are actually currently, with their pit stop, going quicker at the moment. So when the top 4 come in to have their pit stop, there is a chance they will be jumped. A bit confusing. If didn't understand it, please write in to Tom Brooks at gt.com.
That is my official email address, actually. Funny you should say that. Coming through the chicane, then we are here with Rikuto Kobayashi, then with Gallo, Serrano and Benelli very close behind. So they've gone on to lap 4. They've kind of thrown the strategy book out of the window as it stands. That gap has just increased between Sasaki and Miyazono then, 7.7 seconds now. So Sasaki's still got pace behind him there. So it's interesting to see. It kind of ebbs and flows between the two of them, and it was under 8 seconds for a little while. Now it's coming back up towards that 8-second margin. So, as you said, Jimmy, tyre wear isn't expected to be an issue, but they do have the rule they have to make a mandatory pit stop. You don't necessarily have to change the tyres. That's exactly what Koke Lopez did. Came in at the end of lap 1, didn't change his tyres. He's on the same set of medium sport tyres that he started the race on. So I'm keen to see what it's going to be like for him at the end of this race.
You basically come into the pit lane, high five your lollipop and then leave again. That's the, that is the rule for this race.
0.3 of a second that gap now down to between himself and Laboutelet. So he's really within touching distance, and I think it's not going to be long before he's trying to get himself past them.
He has to, really. I mean, at this point, let's just be aggressive. So here we are, another change for the leader, Kobayashi and Gallo. And this is not in a good place in terms of keeping the speed up, because Kobayashi's having to go, Gallo's having to go shallow. Kobayashi's having to get off the brakes. They're going to be slower through there than that for chasing them. It's so complicated when they're even my
I can hear the cogs whirring away underneath your headset there, to be honest, Jimmy.
I mean, it might not be the most dramatic on-track battle we've seen as of yet, but it will be later on.
Fastest man last time around, Koke Lopez. The fastest lap we've seen overall in this race. It doesn't show you the pace he's got underneath him. I don't know what will, and he's right onto the back of Laboutelet now. The gap has increased just up to 0.4 of a second as Kobayashi takes over at the front from Valerio Gallo. Now, surely these top 4 are going to have to come in at the end of this lap. They're going to have to, aren't they?
I mean, they could do it in the last lap if they wanted to. I mean, Koke Lopez has shown it doesn't matter, really. But I like Kobayashi's constant flashing of the hazards. It's basically like a no you. Every time he comes in, no you, mate. I don't think Gallo's listening to you, Kobayashi, if I'm being honest.
Well, what's the meaning of changing lead like this, for example? You've got Gallo changing to the lead and then Kobayashi, and it's just sort of ebbing and flowing. Like we've said before, it's like a high-speed game of chess. What's the meaning behind doing that? What does it signify?
Well, ideally, the way you want to do it is on a straight when there's going to be no braking zone. And you do it because you have the draft, and then you go in front of the guy in front, and then you're both basically being pulled along by each other's draft and slingshot around. So doing that together effectively is actually a really good way to pull away from the guys behind you. But I don't think they've quite pulled it off properly. There have been a couple of times I mentioned before where Gallo's been forced to overtake on a shallow line, and when Kobayashi's had to get off the brake early or anything like that. When you do that, you give away the time. So that's the reason why they keep chopping and changing, but it's not quite working out the way I think they wanted it to.
No, coming through the Porsche curves then. So are they going to come into the pit lane then at the end of this lap? Let's wait and find out then. You can see Gallo all over the back of the rear bumper of Kobayashi's car then as they come in towards the final series of corners. Indicator on then for Kobayashi. He's going to the pit lane. Gallo does not, Serrano does not, but Benelli does. So Kobayashi and Benelli into the pit lane as Gallo and Serrano continue on.
So yet another group for me to try and keep a blooming idea of where they are on circuit. So right now we have Gallo and Serrano, we have Benelli and Kobayashi, and we have these 4 as well, and it's all going to come together on the last lap. This sort of chess game is going to move into its final part of the game. It's Kobayashi, so here he comes. It's not going to be a tyre stop, it's going to be out in. There you go. No thanks, mate, I'm good for tyres. Back out I go. Where is
they're behind
Benelli?
Sasaki. Oh,
here we go.
It's close. It is close.
They'll be up to speed. So Miyazono's going around the outside of Kobayashi. He will do. Miyazono and Yamanaka, they've both jumped the leader, or the old leader, anyway, Kobayashi. The Buta, they couldn't quite get through, but that shows, that's what I mean. They just kept it cleaner. And Miyazono and Yamanaka now have managed to jump Kobayashi. And does that mean that when Gallo and Serrano come in, they're going to be ahead of him too?
This is going to be an almighty battle on the final lap if it plays out as it is then. So there is Sasaki. He's a little bit of a way up the road, 2.7 seconds. That gap now sits between them after Sasaki has not made his pit stop, so he's kind of out of position really of the rest of these guys. So this is the battle for the podium effectively at the moment, though it doesn't say it on your screen, because Sasaki of course has still got to make his pit stop and then will come out of the pit lane presumably behind this gaggle of cars. But Kobayashi, I mean, his heart would have been sinking once he saw Yamanaka and Miyazono go through coming out of that pit lane.
It's working together and knowing when to work together in a race like this, which is absolutely paramount for the results. And dare I say that Miyazono, Yamanaka may be a bit more experienced than Kobayashi, thinking, okay, let's think of the long game. Whereas, you know, being at the front of the pack for 4 laps doesn't matter when the race is 6 laps long.
Well, let's see how this is all going to play out. We're on the penultimate lap then here of the grand final for the Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup. You're looking at Takuma Miyazono, who's battling at minimum now for a podium position, but potentially for the victory in this grand final. So it's Valerio Gallo that leads the way from Jose Serrano. Sasaki 9.1 seconds down the road. Those 3 drivers have not made their pit stop as we sit coming down the Mulsanne.
So I just had a look at the lap times from last time around. 1.2 seconds faster Miyazono was than Valerio Gallo.
Oh, I love it how it all works out with these strategies. It kind of gets a bit confusing in the middle stages of the race unless you're these drivers, because they'll have worked out these strategies. Was that Sasaki going really wide through the second part of the chicane just in front as well? I think it might have been. That gap now is under 2 seconds for the first time in this race as well.
So here's the ideal scenario of your Miyazono and Yamanaka, and there you can see the gap back to the guys behind. So it really is, that's all it is at this point. Just in the background, there are the rest. So, but the ideal scenario now for Miyazono and Yamanaka is just to get onto the back of Sasaki, get a draft down the straight, and then he pits in and gets out of their way, and then they get basically speed for free. So now Serrano and Gallo, they're going to be aware of this. They're going to be thinking, oh no, we've messed this up big time. So they're going to be pushing extra hard now, but I honestly think it's too little too late. I think when they pit in, they're going to get jumped.
I think you could be right. Well, just to remind you, no points on offer for these drivers. Whoever takes glory in this race takes the overall championship crown in the Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup in 2021. Here comes Serrano then onto the back. You can see him lifting, coasting, half throttle there, just taking the slipstream from Valerio Gallo, not wanting to challenge him at this point. They're going to have to come into the pit lane at the end of this lap because we're coming on to the final run around the Circuit de la Sarthe. That gap has stayed pretty consistent between themselves and Sasaki, but he's out of position, he's out of contention for this one, and once he makes his pit stop, he's going to be right towards the back end of this one. But the crucial question is Miyazono, Yamanaka, Kobayashi and so on going to be able to get themselves ahead of Gallo and Serrano on this final lap? It's all coming down and we're about to find out how it's going to play out.
This could go against Miyazono and the like here. If Sasaki is slow through the Porsche curves and holds up these guys, that could halt the charge. So this is going to be an interesting moment here. Now Sasaki does not have to get out of the way. This is for position, he just hasn't pitted yet. So there's no blue flags, nothing like that. He is entitled to that place on the circuit, and Miyazono will know that too. But he has to get by. Let's see what the difference is for the Porsche curves here. We have Sasaki in front, we turn into the first right-hander. Miyazono there, you can see just how much more speed he carries into the corner, and almost, yeah, the car lengths just come down and down the further we go through this complex, out to the right-hand side now, almost touching that wall on the right, and now we turn her in, and again, look how much closer we're getting. But I actually think this is perfect for Miyazono. I think as soon as he's on the boot lid, of course, Sasaki has to pit on this lap because it's one mandatory stop coming onto the last lap. So I think this has worked perfectly for Miyazono. Now, Gallo and Serrano into the pit lane. This is everything for this race. Can they get out the pit lane before Miyazono and Yamanaka pass?
I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I do not think they're going to be able to do it given the pit loss time, which is about 12 seconds or so. They were not 12 seconds ahead coming in towards that final series of corners. Miyazono then is coming through the final chicane, but the crucial question is, where is Gallo and Serrano? Where are they going to emerge? They're not even in the pit box yet. Oh, this is going to be heartbreaking for them. They come into the pit lane. They're about to come out of it now, but I think Miyazono, Yamanaka and Kobayashi are going to be ahead. It's really close between them as they come out then. There's Valerio Gallo, but Miyazono goes into the lead on the final lap then. So Miyazono leads from Yamanaka on the last lap of the Toyota GAZOO Racing GT Cup Grand Final. It's a Japanese 1-2-3, and look at this as well, because Gallo's in and amongst the mix here as well, as he comes out now behind Laboutelet, who's managed to jump him.
And look who's up in fourth, Coque Lopez on that early stop. He has made that work to perfection, but from hero to zero in one pit stop. Gallo now down to 6th place. I saw him shaking his head in the pit stop. He knew exactly what happened. And now the fight for the lead is between 3 Japanese drivers and possibly Coque Lopez if he can gain that time back. We're on board now with Yamanaka. Miyazono in front, of course, last year's champion in the Toyota Series, so looking to try and retain that. But Yamanaka, he's in the prime place now to make that move. You want to be behind right now because you're in the draft. You're the one that gets to decide when the move is made. All Miyazono can do is defend once and then go from there. Will Yamanaka go for the move now? Yeah, he's putting out of the slipstream. He's going to try and take the lead now and try and keep it towards the end of the lap.
Here we go then, down into towards the chicane. Yamanaka on the inside of Takuma Miyazono. He's already ahead before the braking zone. It's Yamanaka then that leads the way. So Tomoaki is in front then from Miyazono, from Kobayashi. So the Japanese 1-2-3 continues on. There is Koke Lopez. A bold strategy it was for the Spaniard, but it's paid dividends for him because he now sits within slipstream range of the top three and could potentially get himself onto the podium if he's able to close up onto the back of them then. So down the second part of the Mulsanne here. So here comes Miyazono retaliating on Yamanaka. Side by side we go down the Mulsanne straight. It's Miyazono versus Yamanaka. Miyazono on the inside, Yamanaka on the outside. Miyazono's now ahead and back into the race lead.
And Yamanaka lifted there. I think maybe he's going to try and get him one more time here. It's all just trying to think, okay, where is the last straight and where am I going to be on the circuit at that point? And those guys fighting like that has allowed Koke Lopez to join the battle somewhat. He was 1.2 behind at the start of the Mulsanne straight coming out of Church Route. He's now just 7/10 behind, give or take a couple of hundredths, so he might be able to get involved in this battle for the lead here. So it's Miyazono leading down towards the Mulsanne corner for the last time here in the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup. Behind him we have Yamanaka and Kobayashi. Yamanaka looking to the outside. I don't think he's going to go for a move, or might he to the inside? No, Miyazono a bit too quick there, cuts across, makes sure to retain the place, but that might be it. If Yamanaka can get through here and be ahead at Arnage, that is the place you want to be ahead.
Let's see what happens then coming down this straight as we head towards the run to Indianapolis and then Arnage. So we're on board here with Miyazono. He doesn't have the advantage, of course, of having that hole punched in the air in front of him like Yamanaka does, and this is going to be crucial then for Yamanaka. Can he get himself into the race lead? Is this going to be his last opportunity to do so? Let's see whether he makes it stick. So here comes Yamanaka then on Miyazono. Miyazono goes to the inside line, tries to defend the track position, but Yamanaka's got the overspeed, he's got the outside line. This is going to be brave from Tomoaki. Yamanaka then, can he make the move stick as they come in towards that right-hander? Yamanaka's ahead. Brilliant commitment from Tomoaki. He's into the lead on the final lap. Miyazono down to second. Is that curtains then for Miyazono and the win in the grand final here?
Well done getting that stop to Yamanaka. He was really all or nothing commitment there. Now we come through Arnage, and I've always said you want to be ahead of the Porsche curves, then you might as well be home free, but we know that's not how things finish in the GT Sport online events. We're on board now at Miyazono. He really only has one more chance to try and get by Yamanaka here. Kobayashi's very close behind us, well, only a 10th and a half behind us at the moment, and Yamanaka, I'm sure, it just has eyes in his mirrors right now, making sure that he doesn't give any room behind him to let Miyazono have a stab. Will he ever go into the Porsche curves? He looks to the right for a second, but no, Yamanaka keeps the place.
Well, you couldn't script this any better, could you? Three Japanese drivers on the podium as it stands, currently fighting for the top three positions in a Japanese manufactured car in this Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup. Through the Porsche curves for the final time, just two more chicanes left. Yamanaka getting a bit sideways through there, but all he's got to do is keep it on the straight and narrow and not defend fresh air from Takuma Miyazono. Let's see whether he can do so as they come in towards the final couple of braking zones. Tomoaki Yamanaka, what a brilliant performance it has been from the Samurai then. Into the braking zone we go for the final time. Kobayashi has a sneaky look on the inside there of Miyazono, but he's not close enough to launch a challenge for second place. Here comes Yamanaka into the final chicane and to the line. It's Tomoaki Yamanaka, the 2021 Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup champion. What a brilliant race from Yamanaka, a fantastic performance. Miyazono finishes in second. It's Kobayashi making it a Japanese 1-2-3. Lopez in fourth, and Gallo completes the top five. Final results then, Tomoaki Yamanaka takes the crown from Takuma Miyazono. Kobayashi finishing on the podium. Lopez, Gallo, Benelli, Labutale, Mangano, Serrano, Fraga inside the top 10. Then Salazar, Sasaki, Cho, Lee, Pounder and Sirigaya complete the top 16 finishers.
So our 2021 Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup winner is Tomoaki Yamanaka from Japan. And I'm delighted to say that he joins me now. Tomoaki, how are you feeling?
So great, so great.
The last lap of that race was crazy intense between you and Miyazono, and you just managed to hold on to it. How did you stay so cool and calm? Because we were screaming.
そうですね、正直気持ちは全く落ち着いてなかったですね。とりあえず宮園選手の後ろをついていって最終ラップで、なんとか前に出られれば、それより前にバトルしてしまうと他の選手にもしかしたら前に出られてしまうかもしれなかったので、もう勝負はファイナルラップ1本で絞ってました。
What do you think, aside from just waiting for that key moment, what were the things that you think that you did that meant that you won that race?
いや、そうですね。今回2周目にピットに入ったはずなんですけど、まず正直、その正解か不正解かは分からなくて、その先頭のペースが思ったよりも、速かったんですけど、ただ集団になっていたので、もしかしたら単独でピット入って走れた方が追いつけるかもしれないっていうところで、ピットに入ったんですけど、そこで宮園選手も同じ戦略だったので、そして宮園選手のペースが素晴らしかったので、それに引っ張ってってもらった形にはなってしまって、僕の速さっていうよりも宮園選手の速さに助けられたかなという、印象です。
The key to success is having Miyazono help you along if possible. But no, I'm just kidding. Big congratulations, Tomoki. Well done. Next up, we're going to speak to second place, which is Takuma Miyazono. Takuma, how are you doing?
ものすっごい悔しいですね。
I can understand that. That final battle in the final lap was so incredibly close. It could have gone either way. How was it that Tomoki managed to just get that final overtake? What happened?
はい。練習の時に、アルナージュコーナーっていうところがあるんですけど、最終ラップでそこまでに前にいる選手の方が勝てるっていうのは分かってたので、なんとかそこまで首位を維持しようと思って、で、最終ラップは組み立てて走ってたんですけど、ちょっと抑えきれずに、直線でスリップ使われて、並ばれてしまって、ちょっとそこで、なんですかね、気持ち、コーナー入るときに引いてしまって、そこで前出られちゃって、そこの差だったのかもしれないですね。はい、勝てなかったのは。
Well, it was so very close. And I am sad that we're not going to have a Miyazono hat trick again this year. But honestly, you shouldn't feel bad about coming in second place because honestly, it was so very, very close. You did so well.
はい、ありがとうございます。去年と一昨年は、GR スープラ GT カップっていう大会が、トヨタさんの大会があったんですけど、今年も、こうやってTGR GT カップで2位取れて、結果的には3年連続で表彰台っていうところは獲得できているので、そこは非常に嬉しく思いますし、最初の、2年前から、今年まで3年間、こうやってこの大会に、参加できて、すごい、感謝してますし、よかったなと思います。
Oh, well, Miyazono, we are very happy that you're part of the GT family. We're very happy. We don't care where you place, just as long as you're here. That's all that counts. All right, well, congratulations, Miyazono. And now we're going to head over to Rikuto Kobayashi. Rikuto, how are you doing after the race?
はい、まず、予選の結果から、ポールポジションスタートっていうことで、まず、それが結構自信になって、自信を持った状態でスタートして、ある程度はミスもないまま周回できていました。ただ、途中でガロ選手に抜かれた後の駆け引きの中でちょっと一回かなりコーナーのブレーキで突っ込みすぎてしまって失速した時があって、その一回のミスで後ろとの差がだいぶ詰まってしまったのかなっていうことで、そこのミスを挽回するために早めにピットに入ったりして、後ろについたりっていうのをやってみたんですけど、結局最後抜けないまま終わってしまったのはちょっと悔しいところではあります。
I mean, I think you did exceptionally well. You're up against, the best in the world here. And, when the pressure's on, they make great kind of strategy moves. So how does it feel, to have raced against some of the best? And what are you going to learn for next time? Because there will be a next time.
はい、そうですね。これだけ本当にレベルの高い戦いっていうのは本当初めてでしたので、その中で実際自分の実力がどれくらい世界に通用するのかっていうところを初めて知れたのがまず経験として大きかったなっていうところがまず一つあります。そして実際戦ってみて激しい中でもやっぱりクリーンなレースっていうところがどこでも繰り広げられていて、 そこでやっぱりこう、自分でも引きを取らずに戦えるってことが分かった上で、その次はまた、そうですね、もっとその各ドライバーの個性だったりだとか、自分の走り方含めて、見直していって、次へ、いつになるかわからないですけど、次またこういった戦いになった時には、勝てるように頑張っていきたいと思います。
I think the rest of the drivers are going to be shaking in their boots about when you turn 18. So you did amazingly well today. Huge congratulations. And yes, well done once again to our 2021 Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup winner, Tomoaki Yamanaka from Japan. And also to our podium finishers, Takuma Miyazono and Rikuto Kobayashi. Tom and Jimmy, what did you think of this great day of racing?
So, I mean, where do we start with that grand final? It was brilliant, wasn't it? Le Mans always delivers. Brilliant racing up and down the field. Let's have a look, first of all, at someone who didn't have such a good day at the office. Igor Fraga. This is on the last lap here, Jimmy. Just talk us through this.
Yeah, I think a bit more of a low light for Igor Fraga this race. There's Sasaki there on the outside last lap of the race, as you said. So managing to get one place back and now trying to size up Salazar in front, coming into the last corner. Not really an overtaking spot there, but you can see he pressured Salazar in front and just about managed to get the better run out of the last corner. Then it's a drag race to the line. So even though this race wasn't too great for Igor Fraga, a little flash of brilliance at the end there, take P10, but I don't think he'll be happy with that.
I just wish it had been more than a flash, to be honest. I think he would have done as well, to be honest, because he was brilliant in those last few corners. If we'd seen that Igor Fraga in the whole race, it would have been fantastic, but
here we are, 10th place. I mean, again, really strong field, so he won't be very happy with that. But this was the main thing, I think, that this is what this race was about, was pit stop strategy. So first of all, we come to Miyazono, who pitted fairly early there, to try and get out of traffic and to try and avoid this situation, because here's Valerio Gallo, here's Kobayashi before Kobayashi pitted, and this little passing here doesn't look like much, but the amount of times that happened meant that they just slowed each other down the circuit. So when it eventually came for Gallo and Serrano to pit, these guys, Miyazono, Yamanaka, and of course Kobayashi, who pitted a lap later than these guys, actually ended up jumping them all in the pit lane. In fact, here is the view from Valerio Gallo.
If you listen, you can just hear Valerio's heart sink. There it is.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That is the feeling of, oh, I should have pitted earlier. I mean, he did manage to get a place back here on the Bouteille, going up from 6th to 5th, but from someone who was fighting for the lead the entire race to come 5th, it's going to be super disheartening for him.
Absolutely, yeah. The Italian driver drove well, but as you said, it all came down to strategy. Here he is again, just an external shot of that you can see there as well. And I just think that's going to be so disappointing for him, really, after a really strong performance, all coming down to those pit stops.
Yeah, all about strategy. You play the wrong one, unfortunately, that's where you end up, down in 5th place.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a look at the battle at the end of that race, though, because it got pretty spicy between Miyazono and Yamanaka. This is on the final lap for the race leader. You can see these two just knocking 7 bells out of each other.
That's what you've got to do on this last lap, is that aggression. And of course, this was something that had been sort of rehearsed a few laps previous. Here's Yamanaka now, sort of letting Miyazono back by. This is down to the second Mulsanne chicane. And at this point, they're both trying to figure out where they're going to be coming into Indianapolis, because that is the spot that's most important to be ahead of. If you're ahead at Arnage, you can pretty much run to the line. So here we are, on the way down to Indy now. You see Yamanaka on the outside. Miyazono trying to defend, but you can't defend against the overspeed. Yamanaka goes the long way around, just about gets it stopped from the corner, and puts himself ahead at a pivotal point.
Amazing commitment there from Tomoaki Yamanaka. Comes across the line to take the checkered flag. What did it mean for the Japanese driver? Well, something like that, I think.
And then by comparison, we look at Miyazono, who came so very close to retaining his title, but just lost it right at that last second.
That's got to be so disappointing. But a brilliant performance from all of our drivers today. And again, a huge congratulations to Tomoaki Yamanaka, our 2021 champion. Let's have a look at the results then. Once again of the grand final, Yamanaka takes the spoils from Miyazono and Kobayashi, an all-Japanese podium in the 2021 Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup.
Right, Jimmy, whilst Tom gets ready for the podium ceremony, which I presume is some sort of silk monogrammed robe that he slips on, I don't really...
Just thought of Tom in pyjamas, and I don't like that, so thank you, Julia. That's
quite all right. How about something a bit more upbeat and we'll cheer you up? Because, of course, it's a lovely reminder that you can pre-order GT7 right now. You're very excited and keen to get it ahead of time, get your
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure my emails have just gone to their spam box. It's all right. Don't
How
worry
many
about
emails have you sent? All right. Well, look, the game comes out in March, so why not give yourself something really awesome to look forward to? Oh. Anyway, it's time for the podium ceremony of the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup. Tom, will you do the honours, please?
Thanks very much, Julia. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation to our podium finishers in the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup. As an extra prize, all of our top 3 drivers will receive a helmet courtesy of the Kinto car subscription service. The producer of the Gran Turismo series, Kazunori Yamauchi, will present the 3rd place trophy. In 3rd place, from Japan, it's Rikuto Kobayashi. To present our 2nd place trophy from the Toyota Financial Services Corporation, Deputy Chief Officer, Kinto Planning Division, Hideo Higashida. In 2nd place, from Japan, it's Takuma Miyazono. Present the trophy to our winner. We're joined by Toyota Motor Corporation's Koya Sugiura from the GR Brand Management Division. And the winner of the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup is Japan's Tomoaki Yamanaka! Ladies and gentlemen, your respect please for the national anthem of our winning driver from Japan. Congratulations to Tomoaki Yamanaka from Japan, our 2021 Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup winner.
I'm so happy to say that Tomoaki Yamanaka is our Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup winner for 2021. Brilliant stuff, and well done to him and to all of our competitors. But before we go, I'd just like to thank Tom. So thank you, Tom, and also to Jimmy. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julie. I need that affirmation. And farewell for now to our audience. Okay, we'll see you again very soon.
Yeah, and thanks for your company. And don't miss the Manufacturer Series World Finals, which are tomorrow. We'll see you then. Bye.
よっしゃー勝った
プレイステーション